Oh my goodness. Hello, hi, and welcome. Let me see. So we have a treat. Hang on. Whoosh, whoosh. Whoosh. It's good to see me, isn't it? Oh my gosh. Hello. I say hello. We're gonna do a little something different. And we're gonna read a little bit today. I know, education. What am I bringing to the people now? It's a little unorthodox, and it might be a little much, but I figure we have to try. Otherwise, how will we ever know? So, let's see. I've got this little thing here where I might do little bits where I do a little recording and I don't respond to the chat. I can't stop playing with this. Let me see. So yeah, I have this little message here that'll pop up when I'm recording, and I won't immediately be responding to the chat when that pops. You shouldn't get my mouse clicks, but if you do, that'll also be the indicator that I am really, really reading, So, there's that. Welcome, hello, and thank you for joining us, yes, because we're gonna read the book. It's backwards, it's not mirrored, it's not mirrored. Wow, amazing, we love it. How cool. I guess I could look directly in the camera. This is so odd. I usually never have to look at the camera because my little VTuber, doesn't do that, right? So have fun with that. I guess I won't be looking at the camera as I'll be reading. So, yeah, without further ado, we're gonna read Wicked here. So, I'll do my best to keep the ASMR voice going, but no promises because you know how we get and how we are. And if it's not the stream for you, I'm sorry. I don't normally stream like this, but it's a special occasion, so we are going to go ahead and start our reading of Wicked. Yay! And I'm gonna turn the gain up even further. Wow. Immaculate. We love it. So, Wicked, the life and times of the Wicked Witch of the West by Gregory Maguire. Actually, I don't even know if I need to whisper, actually. Sorry, you're gonna troubleshoot with us since this is our first time doing this anyway. Thank you, lovelies, for bearing with us. And I need my headphones, so give me a moment while I grab those off the floor. Yes, yes. We are still on old technology. It's fine. Don't mind me. And let's see how we do here. How are you guys tonight? Oh my goodness. Stream manager. Thank you. Okay. I don't know. I think the whispering is pretty good. Or I could just start talking. Yeah, I think I might just talk. That might work. Yeah, I think we'll just talk. The whispering's cute. It's kind of hard and not really my style though, so you can turn me down. I'm never gonna like scream on you, so you'll be fine. Yeah, just turn it down. Don't full volume me. Perfect, perfect. When you were explaining to me earlier, the whispering was a little too quiet for me, so I missed all the instructions. It's okay. There weren't really instructions. Say you're good. It was mostly just me being like, "Hi, hello, I'm going to read," and also this message might pop up. And when this message pops up, I probably won't respond to the chat. Oh my god, stop, no you. It's literally poof, you. Yeah, I think just talking is gonna be fine, so I like that. I'm gonna do my little pingy pings. Everyone. Get educated, bro. Get educated. She was a witch. She came down in a bubble. Twitch X underscore. Okay, perfect. We did it. Hooray. Okay. Thank you, Zay. Oh my god. No, stop. Okay. So, without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and throw this up and give a disclaimer and go ahead and say here, thank you guys so very, very much. Oops. Thank you guys so very, very much for tuning in and hanging out with us while we try something different on here. Yeah, so I hope you enjoy. We will be doing this reading, and yeah, at some point I'll probably pause the recording just to answer like any questions or discuss anything, but full disclaimer, I am not like a professional by any means, right? Like I just do this for fun, so if I mispronounce things or get it wrong or have, opposing opinions to what the artist you think would have, feel free to chime up, point them out, let me know. I love discussions. They're healthy. So good. Anyways, let's get started. Yay. So we will be reading this time around Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West by Gregory Maguire. Just peeping. It's pretty big. It's a pretty big book, It's a healthy girl, right? Thick girl. So it might take a few streams to get through. So this, I guess, is part 1 of however many parts is necessary. I only plan on doing like an hour at a time or so. We'll see, maybe have like an hour of reading and then like a half-hour discussion if anybody even wants to talk about Wicked or the Wizard of Oz or, anything to do with any of the extended universe or the musicals or the lives of the people who started the musicals like Idina Menzel or, anything like that. That's cool. That's cool with me. So without further ado, I'm going to open the book. I bet you guys are so shocked right now that I'm literate. Surprise, she's learned. And I am gonna go ahead and turn the music down even further as I flip through. There's a little map in here. I don't know how relevant this is for those viewing at home. Like I said, I don't know how relevant this is, and I'm really not gonna peep too hard at it. I'm just gonna jump right into the world, right? Like there's clearly some different countries here and things afoot. So, Wicked, the life and times of the Wicked Witch of the West. Prologue. On the yellow brick road. A mile above Oz, the witch balanced on the wind's forward edge, as if she were a green fleck of land itself, flung up and sent wheeling away by the turbulent air. White and purple summer thunderheads surrounded her. Below, the yellow brick road looped back on itself like a relaxed noose. Through winter storms and the crowbars of agitators had torn up the road, still it led, relentlessly, to the Emerald City. The witch could see the companions trudging along, maneuvering around the buckled sections, skirting trenches, skipping when the way was clear. They seemed oblivious of their fate, but it was not up to the witch to enlighten them. She used the broom as a sort of balustrade, stepping down from the sky like one of her flying monkeys. She finished up on the topmost bough of a black willow tree. Beneath, hidden by the fronds, her prey had paused to take their rest. The witch tucked her broom under her arm. Crab-like and quiet, she scuttled down a little at a time until she was a mere 20 feet above them. Wind moved the dangling tendrils of the tree. The witch stared and listened. There were 4 of them. She could see a huge cat of some sort. A lion, was it? And a shiny woodman. The Tin Woodman was picking nits out of the lion's mane, and the lion was muttering and squirming from the aggravation. An animated scarecrow lolled nearby, blowing dandelion heads into the wind. The girl was out of sight, behind shifting curtains of the willow. Of course, to hear them tell it all, it is the surviving sister who is the crazy one, said the lion. What a witch. Psychologically warped, possessed by demons. Insane. Not a pretty picture. She was castrated at birth, replied the Tin Woodman calmly. She was born hermaphroditic, or maybe entirely male. Oh, you see, castration everywhere you look, said the lion. I'm only repeating what the folks say, said the Tin Woodman. Everyone is entitled to an opinion, said the lion, airily. She was deprived of a mother's love, is how I heard it. She was an abused child. She was addicted to medicine for her skin condition. She has been unlucky in love, said the Tin Woodman. Like the rest of us, the Tin Woodman paused and placed his hand on the center of the chest as if in grief. She's a woman who prefers the company of other women, said the Scarecrow, sitting up. She's the spurned lover of a married man. She is a married man. The witch was so stunned that she nearly lost her grip on the branch. The last thing she ever cared for was gossip. Yet, she had been out of touch for so long she was astonished at the vigorous opinions of these random nobodies. She's a despot, a dangerous tyrant, said the lion with conviction. The Tin Woodman pulled harder than it was necessary on a lock of mane. Everything's dangerous to you, you craven thing. I hear she's a champion of home rule for the so-called Winkies. Whoever she is, she must surely be grieving the death of her sister, said the child. I read that entirely wrong.
Whoever she is, she must surely be grieving the death of her sister, said the child, in a somber voice too rich, too sincere for one so young. The witch's skin crawled. Don't go feeling sympathetic now. I certainly can't, the Tin Woodman sniffed, a bit cynically. But Dorothy's right, said the Scarecrow. No one is exempt from grief. The witch was deeply irked by their patronizing speculations. She moved around the trunk of the tree, stretching to catch a glimpse of the child. The wind was picking up, and the Scarecrow shivered. While the Tin Woodman continued fussing over the lion's tresses, he leaned against the lion, who held him tenderly. Storm on the horizon, said the Scarecrow. Miles off, thunder echoed. There is a witch on the horizon, said the Tin Woodman, tickling the lion. The lion got spooked and rolled on top of the Scarecrow, whimpering, and the Tin Woodman collapsed on them both. Good friends, should we be wary of the storm, said the girl. The rising winds moved the curtain of greenery at last, and the witch caught sight of the girl. She was sitting with her feet tucked underneath her and her arms wrapped around her knees. She was not a dainty thing, but a good-sized farm girl, dressed in blue and white checks and a pinafore. In her lap, a vile little dog cowered and whined. The storm makes you skittish. It's natural, after what you've been through, said the woodman. Relax. The witch's fingers dug into the bark of the tree. She could still not see the girl's face, just her strong forearms and the crown of her head where her dark hair was pulled back into pigtails. Was she to be taken seriously, or was she merely a blow-away dandelion seed caught on the wrong side of the wind? If she could see the girl's face, the witch felt that she might know. But as the witch craned outward from the trunk, the girl at the same time twisted her face, turning away. The storm is coming closer, and in a hurry. The feeling in her voice rose as the wind rose. She had a throaty vehemence, like someone arguing through the threat of impending tears. I know storms. I know how they come upon you. We're safer here, said the Tin Woodman. Certainly we are not, answered the girl, because this tree is the highest point around, and if lightning is to strike, it will strike here. She clutched her dog. Didn't we see a shed farther up the road? Come, come. Scarecrow, if there's lightning, you'll burn the fastest. Come on. She was up and running in an ungainly way, and her companions followed in a mounting panic. At first, the hard drops of rain fell. The witch caught sight, not of the girl's face, but of the shoes. Her sister's shoes. They sparkled even in the darkening afternoon. They sparkled like yellow diamonds and embers of blood and thorny stars. If she had seen the shoes first, the witch would have never been able to listen to the girl or her friends, but the legs had been tucked beneath her skirt. But now the witch had been reminded of her need. The shoes should be hers. Hadn't she endured enough? Hadn't she earned them? The witch would fall on the girl from the sky and wrestle those shoes off her impertinent feet, if only she could. But the storm from which the companions raced faster and faster along the yellow brick road troubled the witch more than it did the girl, who had gone through the rain, and the Scarecrow whom lightning could burn. The witch could not venture out in such a vicious, insinuating wetness. Instead, she had to tuck herself between some exposed roots of the black willow tree, where no water could endanger her, and wait for the storm to pass. She would emerge. She always had before. The punishing political climate of Oz had beat her down, dried her up, and tossed her away. Like a seedling, she had drifted, apparently too desiccated to ever take root. But surely the curse was on the land of Oz, not her. Though Oz had given her a twisted life, hadn't it also made her capable? No matter that the companions had hurried away, the witch could wait. They would meet again. Chapter 1. Munchkin Wonders. Start 1. The Root of Evil. From the crumpled bed, the wife said, I think today's the day. Look how low I've gone. Today, that would be like you. Perverse and inconvenient, said her husband, teasing her, standing at the doorway looking outward over the lake, the fields, the forested slopes beyond. He could just make out the chimneys of rush margins, the breakfast fire smoking. The worst possible moment for my ministry, naturally. The wife yawned. There's not a lot of choice involved. From what I hear, your body gets this big and it takes over. If you can't accommodate it, sweetheart, you just get out of its way. It's on a track of its own, and nothing stops it now. She pushed herself up, trying to see over the rise of her belly. I feel like a hostage to myself. Or to the baby. Exert some self-control. He came to her side and helped her sit up. Think of it as a spiritual exercise. Custody of the senses, bodily as well as ethical continence. Self-control, she laughed, inching towards the edge of the bed. I have no self left. I am only a host for the parasite. Where's my self, anyway? Where'd I leave that tired old thing? Think of me. His tone changed. He meant this. Frax, she headed him off. When the volcano's ready, there's no priest in the world that can pray it quiet. What will my fellow ministers think? They'll get together and they'll say, Brother Fraxbar, did you allow your wife to deliver your first child when you had a community problem to solve? How inconsiderate to you. It shows a lack of authority. You're fired from the position. She was ribbing him now, for there was no one to fire him. The nearest bishop was too distant to pay attention to the particulars of a unionist cleric in the hinterland. It's just such terrible timing. I do think you bear half the blame for the timing, she said. I mean, after all, Frax. That's how the thinking goes, but I wonder. You wonder? She laughed, her head going far back. The line from her ear to the hollow below her throat reminded Frax of an elegant silver ladle. In the morning disarray, with her belly like a scow, she was majestically good-looking. Her hair had the bright lacquered look of wet fallen oak leaves in the sunlight. He blamed her for being born to privilege and admired her efforts to overcome it. All the while he loved her too. You mean you wonder if you're the father? She grabbed the bedstead. Frex took hold of the other arm and hauled her half upright. Or do you question the fatherliness of men in general? She stood, mammoth, an ambulatory island. Moving out the door at a slug's pace, she laughed at such an idea. He could hear her laughing from the outhouse even as he began to dress for the day's battle. Frex combed his beard and oiled his scalp. He fastened a clasp of bone and rawhide at the nape of his neck to keep the hair out of his face. Because his expressions today had to be readable from a distance, there could be no fuzziness in his meaning. He applied some coal dust to darken his eyebrows, a smear of red wax on his flat cheeks. He shaded his lips. A handsome priest attracted more penitents than a homely one. In the kitchen yard, Milena floated gently, not with the normal gravity of a pregnancy, but as if inflated, a huge balloon trailing its strings through the dirt. She carried a skillet in one hand and a few eggs in the whiskery tips of autumn chives in the other. She sang to herself, but only in short phrases. Frex wasn't meant to hear her. His sober gown buttoned tight to the collar, his sandals strapped on over his leggings. Frex took from its hiding place, beneath a chest of drawers, the report sent to him from his fellow minister over the village of 3 dead trees. He hid the brown pages within his sash. He had been keeping them from his wife, afraid that she would want to come along, to see the fun if it was amusing, or to suffer the thrill if it was terrifying. But she couldn't sustain the fury at him. Perhaps this was her moral failing. She wasn't much to giving to worrying about moral failings as a rule. Having a minister as her husband seemed to stir enough religious thought for one couple. She lapsed sullenly into silence. Frex nibbled at his meal. It's the devil, said Frex, sighing. I feel like I missed something. Oh my gosh. Page stuck together. No, don't. It was the thrill. Okay, the thrill of it was terrifying. Sorry. As Frex breathed deeply, readying his lungs for a day of oratory, Melina dangled a wooden spoon in the skillet and stirred the eggs. The tinkle of cowbells sounded across the lake. She did not listen, or listened, but to something else, to something inside her. It was the sound without melody, like dream music, remembered for its effect, but not for its harmonic distresses and recoveries. She imagined it was the child inside of her, humming for happiness. She knew he would be a singing child. Melina heard Frex inside and began to extemporize, warming up, calling forth the rolling phrases of his argument, convincing himself again of his righteousness. How did that proverb go? The one that the nanny sing-songed to her years ago in the nursery? Born in the morning, woe without warning, afternoon child, woeful and wild. Born in the evening, woe ends in grieving, night baby borning, same as the morning. But she remembered this as a joke fondly. What was the natural end of life, yet we go on having babies? No, said Nanny, an echo in Melina's mind, and editorializing it as usual. No, no, you pampered little pampered hussy, you pretty little pampered hussy. We don't go on having babies. That's quite apparent. We only have babies when we're young. Not enough not to know how grim life turns out. Once we really get the full measure of it, we're slow learners. We women, we dry up in disgust and sensibly halt production. But men don't dry up, Melina objectified. Melina objected. They can father to the death. Ah, we're slow learners, Nanny countered. But they can't learn at all. Breakfast, said Melina, spooning eggs onto a wooden plate. Her son would not be as dull as most men. She would raise him to defy the onward progress of woe. It is a time for crisis in our society, recited Frex. For a man who condemned worldly pleasure while he ate with elegance. She loved to watch the arabesque of his fingers in two forks. She suspected that beneath his righteous asceticism, he possessed a hidden longing for the easy life. Every day is a great crisis for our society. She was being flip, answering him in terms that men use. Dear thick thing, he didn't hear the irony in her voice. We stand at a crossroads. Idolatry looms, traditional values in jeopardy, truth under siege and virtue abandoned. He wasn't talking to her so much as he was practicing his tirade against the coming spectacle of violence and magic. There was a side to Frex that verged on despair. Unlike most men, he was able to channel it to benefit his life work. With some difficulty, she sat herself down on a bench. Whole choruses were singing, and wordlessly inside her head, was this common for every labor and delivery? She would have liked to have asked the nosy local women who come around this afternoon, growling shyly at her condition. But she didn't dare. She couldn't jettison her pretty accent, which they found affected, but she could avoid sounding ignorant about these basic matters. Frex noticed her silence. You're not angry I'm leaving you today. Angry? She raised her eyebrows, as if she had never encountered the concept before. History crawls along on the peg legs of small individual lives, said Frex, and at the same time, larger eternal forces converge. You can't attend to both arenas at once. Our child may not have a small life. Now isn't the time to argue. Do you want to distract me from holy work today? We're facing the presence of real evil in rush margins. I just couldn't live with myself if I ignored it. He meant this, and for such intensity, she had fallen in love with him. But she hated him for it too, of course. Threats come, and they'll come again. Her last word on the subject. Your son will only be born once, and if this watery upheaval is any indication, I think it's today. There will be other children. She turned away, so he could not see the rage in her face. But she couldn't sustain the fury at him. There we go. Perhaps this was her moral failing. She wasn't given much about worrying about moral failings as a rule. Having a minister as a husband seemed to stir enough religious thought for one couple. She lapsed sullenly into silence. Flex nibbled at his meal. It's the devil, said Frex, sighing. The devil is coming. Don't say such a thing like that on a day our child is expected. I mean the temptation in rush margins, and you know what I mean, Melina. Words are word and what's said is said, she answered. I don't require all your attention, Frex, but I do need some of it. She dropped the skillet with a crash on the bench that stood against the cottage wall. Well, and likewise, he said. What do you think I'm up against today? How can I convince my flocks to turn away from the razzle-dazzle and spectacle of idolatry? I will probably come back tonight having lost to a smarter attraction. You might achieve a child today. I look forward to failure. Still, as he said this, he looked proud. To fail in the cause of high moral concern was satisfying to him. How could it compare to the flesh, blood, mess, and noise of having a baby? He stood at last to leave. A wind came up over the lake now, smudging the topmost reaches of the columns of the kitchen smoke. They looked, thought Melina, like funnels of water swirling down drains, narrowing, focusing spirals. Be well, my love, said Frex, although he had his stern public expression on from forehead to toes. Yes, Melina sighed. The child punched her, deep down, and she had to hurry to the outhouse again. Be holy, I'll be thinking of you, my backbone, my breastplate, and also try not to be killed. The will of the unnamed god, said Frex. My will too, she said blasphemously. Apply your will to which it deserves it, he answered. Now he was the minister, and she was the sinner, an arrangement she did not particularly enjoy. Goodbye, she said, and chose the stink and relief of the outhouse over standing to wave him out of sight as he strode along to rush margins. Yay! Okay, that was the first bit there. What do you guys think? Oh my goodness. Hi, Sales. Say you'll be a terrible chatter because this is my first experience with Wicked. No, you're fine. You're always an excellent chatter. I don't know what you're talking about. You're always so beautiful. I don't know what you're referring to. If you haven't seen Wicked yet, I don't know if the book is a better introduction. I feel like the musical is definitely the easy introduction to everything. The musical is so much more palatable. Yes, yes. Whoosh, whoosh, boom. I've solved your financial struggles for the next 2 weeks. You're welcome. I cast a good spell just for you. Yes, just for you, Sales. I need a bookmark. This wrapper from a straw will do nicely for now until I get an official bookmark going. How long's it been? 30 minutes? Oh my goodness. We aren't even through the first chapter yet, and we haven't even answered many of the questions. Oh no. Yeah. I said we'd do an hour, so we'll do. I wanted to finish chapter 1, honestly, but I don't think it's gonna happen. So we might just keep reading until, I think we can do it. Why are you crying? What's happening? Don't cry. I'm trying to solve problems, not create more. But I am the good witch, so it does make sense. Do an hour. Do a flip. Do a little flip. Okay. That. Only because you asked so nicely. That's because I'm so nice. We'll do an hour of reading, and then we'll do a little talking, and then we might switch to games, or I might sing. This is a good fit to sing in. I mean, you will be. We'll see. Yeah, I hope it's going well so far, so. Okay. We haven't even gotten to like any of the crazy stuff yet. Like, honestly, I'm excited to actually get into everything. It looks like we've gotten really far, but it's just because, like, this bit is just how, like, people telling the book how great it is. So, we're now on officially page 11. Munchkinlanders is this section of the book. And this current little chapter here is called The Clock of the Time Dragon. The Time Dragon Clock. No way. No you. No you. No you. Anyways, I love you. I'm gonna throw this back up and get back to reading. Okay, great. Love it. Fantastic. And we did leave off with Munchkinlanders, so continuing with our reading is The Clock of the Time Dragon. Rex was more concerned for Milena than she knew. He stopped at the first fisherman's hut he saw and spoke with the man at the half door. Could a woman or two spend the day, and if needed, the night with Milena? It would be a kindness. Rex nodded with a wince of gratitude, acknowledging without words that Milena was not a great favorite in these parts. Then, before continuing, around the end of Illswater and over to Rush Margins, he stopped at a fallen tree and drew 2 letters from his sash. The writer was a distant cousin of Rex, also a minister. Weeks earlier, the cousin had spent time in valuable ink on a description of what was being called the Clock of the Time Dragon. Rex prepared himself for the day's holy campaign by rereading about the idle clock. I write in haste, Brother Frexbar, to catch my impressions before they fade. The clock of the Time Dragon is mounted on a wagon and stands as high as a giraffe. It is nothing more than a tottering, free-standing theater, punched on all 4 sides with alcoves and proscenium arches. On the flat roof is a clockwork dragon, an invention of green painted leather, silvery claws, ruby jeweled eyes. Its skin is made of hundreds of overlapping discs of copper, bronze, and iron. Beneath the flexible folds of its scales is an armature controlled by clockwork. The time dragon circles on the pedestal, flexes its narrow leathery wings. They make a sound like a bellows, and belches out sulphurous falls of flaming orange. Below, featured in the dozens of doorways, windows, and porches, are puppets, marionettes, figurines, creatures of folk tale, caricatures of peasants and royalty alike. Animals and fairies and saints are unionist saints. Brother Frexbar, stolen out from underneath us, I get enraged. The figures move on sprockets, the wheel in and out of doorways. They bend at the waist, they dance, they dawdle and dally with each other. Who had engendered this time dragon, this fake oracle, this propaganda tool for wickedness that challenged the power of unionism and of the unnamed god? The clock handlers were a dwarf and some narrow-waisted minions who seemed to only have enough brain capacity among them to pass a hat. Who else was benefiting besides the dwarf and his beauty boys? The cousin's second letter had warned that the clock was making its way to Rush Margins. It had told a more specific story. The entertainment began with a thrum of strings and a rattle of bones. The crowds pushed close, wooing. Within the lighted window of a stage, we saw a marriage bed with a puppet wife and husband. The husband was asleep, and the wife sighed. She made a motion with her carved hands to suggest that her husband was disappointingly small. The audience shrieked with laughter. The puppet wife went to sleep herself. When she was snoring, the puppet husband sneaked out of bed. At this point, up and above, the dragon turned on its base and pointed its talons into the crowd, indicating without a doubt a humble well-digger named Grine, who has been faithful if inattentive husband. Then the dragon reared back and stretched 2 fingers in a come-hither gesture, isolating a widow named Letta and her snaggle-toothed maiden daughter. The crowd hushed, and they fell away from Grind, Letta, and the blushing maid, as if they had been suddenly inflicted with running sores. The dragon rested again, but draped a wing over another archway, which lit up to reveal the puppet husband, wandering out in the night. Along came a puppet widow, with sprigged hair and high color, dragging along a protesting, flinty-toothed daughter. The widow kissed the puppet husband, and pulled off his leather trousers. He was equipped with 2 full sets of male goods, one in the front and another hanging off the base of his spine. The widow then positioned her daughter on the abbreviated prong in the front, and herself took advantage of the more menacing arrangement in the rear. The 3 puppets bucked and rocked, emitting squeals of glee. When the puppet widow and her daughter were through, they dismounted and kissed the adulterous puppet husband. They then kneed him simultaneously in the fore and aft. He swung on springs and hitches, trying to hold all of his wounded parts. The audience roared. Grine, the actual well-digger, sweated drops as big as grapes. Letta pretended to go off, but her daughter had already disappeared from shame. Before the evening was out, Grine was set upon by his agitated neighbors and investigated for the grotesque anomaly. Letta was shunned. Her daughter seems to have vanished entirely. We suspect the worst. At least Grine wasn't killed. Yet, who can say how our souls have been stamped by witnessing such cruel drama? All souls are hostages to their human envelopes, but souls must decay and suffer at such indignity, don't you agree? Sometimes it seemed to Frex that every internet witch and toothless gibbering seer in Oz who could perform even the most transparent of spells had seized on the outback district of Wend Hardings to scratch out a trade. He knew that folks from Rush Margins were humble, their lives were hard, and their hopes few. As the drought dragged on, their traditional unionist faith was eroding. Frex was aware that the clock of the time dragon combined the appeals of ingenuity and magic, and he would have to call on his deepest reserves of religious conviction to overcome it. If his congregation should prove vulnerable to the so-called pleasure faith, succumbing to spectacle and violence, well, what next? He would prevail. He was their minister. He had pulled their teeth and buried their babies and blessed their kitchen pots for years now. He had abased himself in their names. He had wandered with an unkempt beard and a begging bowl from hamlet to hamlet, leaving poor Melina alone in the minister's lodge for weeks at a time. He had sacrificed for them. They couldn't be swayed by this time-dragging creature. They owed him. He moved, shoulders squared, jaws set, stomach in a sour uproar. The sky was brown and flying sand and grit. The wind rushed high over the hills with the sound of a tremulous wail, as if pushing through some fissure of rock, a ridge beyond any that Frex could see. The birth of a witch. It was nearly evening by the time Frex had worked up the courage to enter the ramshackle hamlet of Rush Margins. He was in deep sweat. He hit his heels to the ground and pumped his clenched fists. He called out in a hoarse, carrying tone, "Hist, O ye of small confidence! Gather while ye may, for temptation is abroad, so try ye sorely." The words were archaic, even ridiculous, but they worked. Here came the sullen fishermen, dragging their empty nets up from the dock. Here came the subsistence farmers, whose hard-scrabble plots had borne little during this dry year. Before he had even begun, they all looked guilty as sin. They followed him up the rickety stairs of the canoe repair house. Frex knew that everyone expected this evil clock to arrive at any instant. Gossip was as contagious as the plague. He yelled at them for their thirsty anticipation. "Ye are dull as toddlers reaching their hands to touch the pretty embers. Ye are as if spawn of dragon womb, ready to suck on teats of fire." These were time-worn scriptural imprecations, and they fell a little flat tonight. He was tired and not at his best. Brother Frexbar, said Fee, the mayor of Rush Margins, could you perhaps tone down your harangue until we get a chance to see what fresh new form temptation might take? You have no mettle to resist new forms, said Frex, spitting. Haven't you been able to read? Haven't you been our able teacher these several years? Said Brafee. We've hardly such a good chance to prove ourselves against sin. We're looking forward to the spiritual test of it all. The fisherman laughed and jeered, and Frex intensified his glower. But at the sound of unfamiliar wheels and the stony ruts in the road, they all turned their heads and fell silent. They had lost their attention before he had gotten us started. The clock was being drawn by 4 horses and escorted by the dwarf and his cohort of young thugs. Its broad roof was crowned by the dragon. But what a beast! It looked poised, as if ready to spring, as if indeed invested with life. The skin of the house was decorated in carnival colors, burnished with gold leaf. The fisherman gaped as it drew near. Before the dwarf could announce the time of the performance, before the crowd of youths could draw out their clubs, Frex leaped onto the lower step of the thing, a fold-down stage on hinges. Why is this thing called a clock? The only clock face it has is dull, flat, and lost in distracting detail. Furthermore, the hands don't even move. Look, see for yourselves. They're painted on to remain at 1 minute before midnight. All you'll see here are mechanics, my friends. I know this for a fact. You'll see mechanical cornfields growing, moons waxing and waving, a volcano to spew a soft red cloth done up with black and red sequins. With all this tick-tocky business, why not have a pair of circulating arms on the clock face? Why not, I ask you? I'm asking you. Yes, you, Gonnet, and you, Stoy, and you, Parippa. Why no real clock here? They were not listening. Gonnet and Stoy and Parippa, nor the others. They were too busy, staring in anticipation. The answer, of course, is that the clock isn't meant to measure earthly time, but the time of the soul, redemption and condemnation time. For the soul, each instant is always but a minute short of judgment. 1 minute short of judgment, my friends. If you died in the next 60 seconds, would you want to spend eternity in the suffering, suffocating depths reserved for idolaters? Awful lot of noise in the neighborhood tonight, said someone in the shadows, and all the spectators laughed. Above Frex, he whirled to see from a little door had emerged a small, yapping puppet dog, its hair dark and tightly curled as Frex's own. The dog bounced on a spring, and the pitch of its chatter was annoyingly high. The laughter grew. Evening fell harder, and it was less easy for Frex to tell who was laughing and now who was shouting for him to move to the side so they could see. He wouldn't move, so he bundled unceremoniously from his perch. The dwarf gave a poetic welcome. All our lives are activity without meaning. We burrow rat-like into life, and we squirm rat-like through it, and rat-like we are flung into our graves at the end. Now and then, why shouldn't we have a voice of prophecy or see a miracle play? Beneath the apparent sham and indignity of our rat-like lives, a humble pattern and meaning still applies. Come nearer, my good people, and watch with a little extra knowledge augurs for your life. The time dragon sees before and beyond and within the truth of the sorry span of your years here. Look at what it shows you. The crowd pushed forward. The moon had risen, and its light like the eye of an angry, vengeful god. Give over, let me go, Frex called, as it was worse than he had thought. He had never been manhandled by his own congregation. The clock unfolded a story about a publicly pious man with lamb's wool beard and dark curly locks who preached simplicity, poverty, and generosity, all while keeping himself a hidden coffer of gold and emeralds in the double-hinged bosom of a weak-chinned daughter of blue-blood society. The scoundrel was run through with an iron stake in a most indelicate way and served up to his hungry flock as roast flank of minister. This panders to your basest instincts, Frex yelled, his arms folded and his face magenta with fury. But now that darkness was almost total. Someone came up from behind him to silence him. An arm encircled his neck. He twisted to see which damn parishioner took such liberties, but all the faces were cloaked by hoods. He was kneed in the groin and doubled over, his face in the dirt. A foot kicked him square in the buttocks, and his bowels released. The rest of the crowd, however, was not watching. They were howling at the mirth and some other entertainment put on by the clock dragon. A sympathetic woman in a widow's shawl grabbed his arm and led him away. He was too fouled, too much pain to straighten up and see who it was. I'll put you down in the root cellar, I will, under a burlap, crooned the good wife, for they'll be after you tonight with pitchforks, and the way that thing is behaving itself, they'll look for you in your lodge. There won't be looking in my keeping room. Melina, he croaked, they'll find her. She'll be seen too, said his neighbor. We women can manage that much, I guess. In the minister's lodge, Melina struggled with consciousness as a pair of midwives went in and out of focus before her. One was a fishwife, the other a palsied crone. They took turns feeling her forehead, peering between her legs, and stealing glances at the few beautiful trinkets and measures Melina had managed to bring here from the Colwyn grounds. You can chew the paste of pin knobble leaves, ducky, while you do that. You'll be unconscious before you know it, said the fishwife. You relax, and we'll pop the little sweetheart, and all will be well in the morning. Thought you would smell of rosewater and fairy dew, but you stink like the rest of us. Chew on, my ducky, chew on. At the sound of a knock, the crone looked up guiltily from the chest she was kneeling before and rummaging through. She let the lid close with a bang and affected a position of prayer, eyes closed. Enter, she called. A maiden with tender skin and high color came in. Oh, I had hoped someone would be here. How is she? Nearly out, and so is the babe, answered the fishwife. An hour more, I reckon. Well, I'm torn to warn you. The men are drunk and out on the prowl. They've been riled up by that dragon of the magic clock thing, you know, and are looking for Frex to kill him. The clock said to. They'll likely stagger out here. We'd better get the wife away safely. Can she be moved? No, I cannot be moved, thought Melina. And if the peasants find Frex, tell them to kill him good and hard for me, for I never knew a pain so extraordinary that made me see the blood behind my own eyes. Kill him for doing this to me. And at this thought, she smiled in a moment of relief and passed out. Let's leave her here and run for it, said the maiden. The clock said to kill her too, and the little dragon she's going to give birth to. I don't want to get caught. We've got our own reputations to uphold, said the fishwife. We can't abandon this fancy lady thing in mid-delivery. I don't care what any clock says. The crone, head back in the chest, said, Anyone for some real lace from Gillikin? There's a hay cart in the lower field, but let's do it now, said the fishwife. Come help me fetch it. You, old Mother Hag, get your face out of the linens and come dampen this pretty pink brow. Righto, now we go. A few minutes later, the crone, the wife, and the maiden were trundling the hay cart along a rarely used track through spindles and brackens of the autumn woods. The wind had picked up. It whistled over the treeless foreheads of the cloth hills. Melina, sprawled in blankets, heaved and moaned in unconscious pain. They heard a drunken mob pass, with pitchforks and torches. The women stood silent and terrified, listening to slurred curses. They pressed on, with greater urgency, until they came up upon a foggy copse, the edge of a graveyard for unconsecrated corpses. Within it, they saw the blurred outlines of the clock. It had been left here for safekeeping by the dwarf. No fool he could guess the particular corner of the world where the last place jumpy villagers would seek tonight. The dwarf and his boykins were drinking in the tavern too, the maiden said breathlessly. There's no one here to stop us. The crone said, So you've been peering in the tavern at the men, you slut? She pushed open the door in the back of the clock. She found a crawl space. Pendulums hung ominously in the gloom. Huge toothed wheels looked primed to slice any trespasser into sausage rounds. Come on, drag her in, said the crone. The night of torches and fog gave way, at dawn, to broad bluffs of thundercloud, dancing skeletons of lightning. Glimpses of blue sky appeared briefly, though sometimes it rained so hard that it seemed more like mud drops falling than water. The midwives, crawling on their hands and knees out of the back of the clock wagon, had their little discharge at last. They protected the infant from the dripping gutter. Look, a rainbow, said the senior, bobbing her head. A sickly scarf of colored light hung in the sky. What they saw, rubbing the caul and blood off the skin, was it just a trick of the light? After all, following the storm, the grass did seem to throb with its own color, and the roses zinged and hovered with crazy glory on their stems, but even the effects of light and atmosphere, the midwives couldn't deny what they saw. Beneath the spit of the mother's fluids, the infant glistened a scandalous shade of pale emerald. There was no wail, no bark of newborn outrage. The child opened its mouth, breathed, and then kept its own counsel. "Whine, you fiend," said the crone. "It's your first job." The baby shirked its obligations. "Another willful boy," said the fishwife. "Shall we kill it?" "Don't be so nasty to it," said the crone. "It's a girl." "Ha," said the bleary-eyed maiden. "Look again. There's the weather vane." For a minute they were in disagreement, even with the child naked before them. Only after a second and third rub was it clear that the child was indeed feminine. Perhaps in labor some bit of organic effluvia had become caught and quickly dried in the cloven place. But once toweled, it was observed to be prettily formed, with a long, elegant head, 4 arms that turned out nicely, clever little pinching buttocks, cunning fingers with scratchy little nails, and an undeniable green cast to the skin. There was a salmon blush in the cheeks and belly, and a beige effect around the clenched eyelids. A tawny stripe on the scalp showed the pattern of where eventual hair would go. But the primary effect was vegetable. "Look what we got for our troubles," said the maiden. "A little green pat of butter. Why don't we kill it? You know what people will say." "I think it's rotten," said the fishwife, and checked for the root of a tail, counted the fingers and toes again. "It smells like dung." "That is dung you're smelling, you idiot. You're squatting in a cow patty pie." "It's sick, it's feeble, that's why the color. Lose it in the puddle, drown the thing. She'll never know. She'll be out for hours in her ladylike faints." They all giggled. They cradled the infant in the crook of their arms, passing it around to test it for weight and balance. To kill it would be the kindest course of action. The question was, how? The child yawned, and the fishwife absent-mindedly gave it a little finger to nurse on, and the child bit the finger at the second knuckle. Oh, the child bit the finger off at the second knuckle. It almost choked on the gush of blood. The digit dropped out of its mouth into the mud like a bobbin. The woman catapulted into action. The fishwife lunged to strangle the girl, and the crone and the maiden flared up in defense. The finger was dug out of the mire and shoved into an apron pocket, possibly to sew back onto the hand that lost it. "It's a cock. She just realized she didn't have one," screeched the maiden, and fell onto the ground laughing. "Oh, beware the stupid boy that tries to please himself with her. She'll snip his young sprout off for a souvenir." The midwives crawled back into the clock and dropped the thing at its mother's breast, afraid to consider the mercy murder for fear of what else the baby might bite. "Maybe she'll chop the teat next. That'll bring her drowsy frailness around quick enough," the crone chuckled. Though, what a child that sips blood even before the first suck of its mother's milk. They left a pipkin of water nearby under the cover of the next squall and went squelching away to find their sons and husbands and brothers and berate and beat them if they were available, or bury them if not. In the shadows, the infant stared overhead at the oiled and regular teeth of the time clock. Wild. Absolute bananas. Oh my gosh. Hi, Law. How's it going? I need a new bookmark. How you guys liking the book so far? We have Law in the chat. Love the makeup. Thank you. Whoosh. We love you too. Thank you very much. We are doing a reading, so thank you for joining us. Yes. Whoosh. It's good to see me, isn't it? Yes, yes. Zay, all you need to know about Wicked is that it is a fan fiction that somebody wrote about the Wizard of Oz basically just giving more context to the backstory of like the witches and like a bunch of stuff to do with the political climate of Oz and stuff like that. The only important thing for you to know is that you know who Ariana Grande is, right? Everybody does. We love her. She plays Glinda the Good Witch in the movie, and that's all you need to know. And her counterpart is one of the greatest singers possibly of all time. So yes. Mm. And then, yeah, we got this little picture over here to the side. Yes, that's me in my form and Zella in their form, but we're the cast of Wicked, you see. I got my little I don't have a crown. Is Zella surviving her deathly illness? Poof, they shall survive. Although it'll be at a cost. Yes, indeed, indeed. She's doing okay. I made some soup this morning, and I do believe that my soup is better than any medicine you could buy. So, chicken soup. She has chicken noodle soup, big pot of it. Other than that, there's not much else I can do besides try not to hit my microphone. So yes, she's got soup, and we've loaded her up with what the pharmacy could give us. So Dayquil, NyQuil is pretty much seemingly the solution. It's one of those where it's like you'd hope that a little bit of sleep, a little bit of rest, some water would solve it, but it's been a couple hours today and she's not felt super great. So yes, I also I'm trying not to get sick. Right? We're trying. Yeah, that's all I have for you. I've just been drinking my tea and staying mostly in my room and going out to just make soups. I do get sick quite often, unfortunately. I get the sicknesses a couple times a year, so it's nothing for me to like take care of somebody else when they're sick because I'm like, this is like, you know, unfortunately, sometimes my homeostasis. It lasted about a week. Ooh, whoosh, whoosh. No, no more sicknesses, especially not week long. I'm hoping for her it's a 24-hour thing. She started feeling icky like really kind of last night. So I'm hoping like, tomorrow morning she feels great. So, yep. I know. She's so sick. It's so sad. She's like she you know how like you can like feel not great, but you're like, I could still like play games or even watch movies. I'm telling you all that I tried so hard to put on a movie earlier for her and she passed out. I felt so bad. Like she didn't even have the energy. And like granted, I probably could have picked a better film. I put on Inglorious Bastards because she had never seen it, and I was like, "Oh, you'll love it! It's so relevant, like today. It's great." The Twitch pack misses her. I know. I miss her. We all miss her. It's not the same without her. Look at all this stuff that's happening because she's not here. I'm losing it. I can hear her coughing in the other room. Like, it's not great. I don't love when my friends are sick. So yes, whoosh, healthy, healthy rest of the year. We're gonna be done with this. Yeah, she was coming in and out. Okay, so like two problems with it is number one, she could not focus on the plot, and then number two, we were watching it on a site that didn't allow us to have subtitles. So like I'm like turning it all the way up so she can hear the dialogue, and then I have to like turn it all the way down because sometimes that music audio mix is just insane in Tarantino films. Like I don't understand why he's like, but what if we put the music at 300% volume? And I'm like, okay, I'm not the editor, I guess, for a reason. Yeah, yeah, Tarantino films are really bad about it. For real, for real. You're like, why can't these productions figure their shit out? And like me having audio problems every time I go live, and I'm like, listen, we're all doing our best. They the only up thing they have on me is millions of dollars, but like clearly that's not like solving the problem. So yeah. I can't judge you right, but you guys can, and I support you guys judging. Yes, judge harder, judge more. The people can make all the judgments. I love it. Yes, yes, it's so nice. I love it. I support all the judging. Yes. It's like the opposite of being Jesus. Like, I can't judge you and I will never judge you, but everybody else is allowed to, and I support that. And that's why I'm such a benevolent witch. Yes, thank you. Thank you. um, yeah, truly, if you haven't seen Inglorious Bastards, I highly recommend it. It's a very good movie. I really like World War II films. I think I saw Saving Private Ryan when I was like way too young, and like that like was like this movie is so good. Like it makes so much sense. I love it. God, me personally, I can't do anything wrong, but I'm gonna give you all free will just 'cause I want to see what happens, you know? Like, write a book about it or something. I don't know. Like, it's pretty funny, honestly. He's the biggest comedian if we think about it, honestly. Nobody plays bigger and better jokes, am I right? Example A, let's go, baby. Um, he's such a whimsical. He's just a silly little guy. He just does silly little things. Had that big old breakup with that one guy who's like super pretty and like now all mad or whatever. I don't know. I never really listened to the sides of breakup stories because like, you know, it's always like one person's like, oh well this is my story, and then the other guy's like, but like this is how he was to me, and I'm like, yeah, well, we all weren't there for the relationship, so how can we judge, right? Like again, I don't judge. You guys judge, and I just, you know, put you guys on the platform. It's really your opinions. I'm just a mirror for your souls. It's like looking in a mirror for my soul. Along for the ride, 100%. 100s. So yeah, it's been an hour. I'll probably go another 30. This is how far we're through the book with my little paper straw. Um, I'll find a card or something to use as a bookmark after I get off. But what do you guys think so far? Do you like the book? Do you like the story? Do you like my closet Glinda cosplay with my toss toss? For those who haven't seen the movie, that's like a key thing in the musical is like Glinda like teaches Elphaba how to toss her hair, like, you know, like really like you gotta really get behind it, you know. It's hard to do when you're in a spinny chair, but I like the pile of plushies on your bed. Thank you. So I actually have, I'll lean back. It's a queen size frame, but I only have a twin size mattress. So as far down as my mattress goes, that's how deep the plushie pile is right now. So when I get a real mattress, the real size of my bed frame, all that will be pushed up and probably fill the whole back wall. Hopefully, that's what I'm hoping. I have a lot of plushies. Yes, relatable content. We'll have to do like a plushie tour at some point. I had like a mini doll tour set up on my TikTok a long time ago, but at this point we need to do the plushie tour. Not me stuffing space with plushies. It's a lot. It's a serious problem. Like Cubone's sitting on top and like he's like chilling on a bunch of little guys. I feel bad because I just got him, so he just like went on the pile. But yeah, he's on top of many of brothers and sisters. I'm calling CPS. Do it. Do it. I'll dox myself for that one. All of my children that are stuffed are right there on just raw bed frames, and all of my children that are plastic with their little doll hairs are in some boxes on the other side of the room. Yeah, that's right. They're still in cardboard boxes from my move. They have not seen the light of day since like fall. I have moved 2 other people at this point out of their homes into new homes and still not unpacked my stuff. I actually really love your wall though. Oh, my $2 wallpaper job. You like that? Thank you. I picked it out because I thought, oh, this is not that pretty. I love it. And then I put it up and I'm like, looks kind of pretty. I love it. It was very cheap, which is which is why I have it. It was very affordable, and now I can like stick things on my wall, and when I leave I just rip down everything that's on the wallpaper. Makes it easy. I have a lot of art from a lot of cons over the last few years. It didn't cost that much. It did take some time though. Yeah, it did take a little bit of time. So if you guys ever want a tutorial on how to put up wallpaper, I do all the house husband things. Yes. I mount TVs, I put up the wallpaper, I hang your portraits. Multifaceted. It wouldn't be ASMR at that point because I would legit be like, okay, I'm gonna turn my impact drill on now. Sorry. And goodness. Show us how to drill a hole ASMR. I'll show you how to drill boom, boom, boom your pilot hole, and then you'll be able to put your screw in if you want, or you could go ahead and just drill it a little bit thicker because you're going to be putting quarter size lag bolts in when you mount that TV. Oh, what's that? You don't have a stud to go into? No worries, we got T-bolts available we can use. You guys, we had all the things here. I could really honestly do like I've never watched Home Improvement, but like, wouldn't I make such a cute Tim Allen, like, toolbox reveal? Oh my god. Okay, so like, this is where I tell you guys, like, I'm a pretty boy and I don't have an ugly toolbox because like that's all they make. They don't make pretty. When they make pink toolboxes, they're not pink, right? They're like, you know, breast cancer awareness pink, and it's like, I don't want that. That's still not pretty. So my tool bag is a bag, not a box. It's a bag. It's like an oversized pink leopard print like gym bag that I just put my tools in. It's very cute. Very cunt. But yes, enough about my silly home improvement stuff that I do, because that's only one thing. We're here. I don't know. Yeah. We're here to continue reading Wicked. So I'm gonna do another probably like 20-30 minutes. We'll just do one more chapter, and then yeah, that'll probably be it for this part 1 ASMR stream. Ooh, you guys have been so sweet to like hang out with me, but I gotta snatch my wig at some point, so another hour we could do. Half hour. 1/2 hour more, and then we'll call it good on ASMR. But you know us, we still haven't played Malvadora, so we really want to play League of Legends. We might do that, who knows. But for now, I don't know why I keep doing that. I like this hair here. We're gonna go ahead and read some more. Does it get itchy? No, it's not itchy. I prefer like big costumes. I usually wear like fursuits, or I have an Oogie Boogie one that I wore recently, and it's like made of burlap, and like that one's itchy. But like, it's just I think it's the wig cap, really. I think I just need a better wig cap. It's like a pressure right here. I get a wig headache is usually the reason. My lashes usually bother me, but they're not so bad today. I do have a wear-at-home apron, but it is not the color, again, of the Home Depot ones because they're ugly. Elle's overpowered. If you aren't first pick, you might as well ban her. Rip. I haven't played her yet. I logged on, I purchased her, and then I didn't get a chance to play her, so hoping I can do that soon. I've been really into Lego Fortnite Battle Pass recently, so that's been my whole life. It is my whole life. I live in the Lego Fortnite Battle Pass. Alright, so we're gonna jump right back into a Wicked. Yes. Oh, I forgot to hit the record button. Jumping right back in to the next part, the next chapter. Still in Munchkin Landers. Our next chapter is Melodies and Remedies. For days, Melina couldn't bear to look at the thing. She held it, as a mother must. She waited for the groundwater of maternal affection to rise and overwhelm her. She did not weep. She chewed pin knobble leaves to float away from the disaster. It was a she. It was a her. Melina practiced conversions into her thinking when she was alone. The twitching, unhappy bundle was not male. It was not neutered. It was a female. It slept, looking like a heap of cabbage leaves washed and left to drain on the table. In a panic, Melina wrote to Cowan Grounds to drag Nanny from her retirement. Frex went ahead in a carriage to collect Nanny from the way station at Stone's Par End. On the trip back, Nanny asked Frex what was wrong. "What is wrong?" he sighed, and was lost in thought. Nanny realized she had chosen her words poorly, and now Frex was distracted. He began to mumble in a general way about the nature of evil. A vacuum, set up by the inexplicable absence of the unnamed god, and into which a spiritual poison must rush. A vortex. "I mean, what is the state of the child?" retorted Nanny explosively. "It's not the universe, but a single child I need to hear about if I'm going to be any help. Why does Melina call for me instead of for her mother? Why is there no letter for her grandfather? He's the eminent Throp, for goodness sakes. Melina can't have forgotten her duty so thoroughly, or is life out there in the country worse than we thought?" "It's worse than we thought," said Frex grimly. "The baby... You had better be prepared, Nanny, so you don't scream. The baby is damaged." "Damaged?" Nanny's grip on her valise tightened, and she looked out over the red-leafed pearl fruit trees by the side of the road. "Frex, tell me everything." "It's a girl," said Frex. "Damaged indeed," said Nanny mockingly, but Frex, as usual, missed the dig. "Well, at least the family's title preserved for another generation. Has she got all her limbs?" "Yes." "Any more than she needs?" "No." "Is she sucking?" "We can't let it. It has extraordinary teeth, Nanny. It has shark's teeth or something like that." "Well, she won't be the first child to grow on a bottle or a rag instead of a tit. Don't worry about that." "It's the wrong color," said Frex. "What color is the wrong color?" For a few minutes, Frex could only shake his head. Nanny did not like him, and she would not like him, but she softened. "Frex, it can't be that bad. There's always a way out. Tell Nanny." "It's green," he finally said. "Nanny, it's green as moss." "She's green, you mean. It's a she, for heaven's sake." "It's not for heaven's sake." Frex began to weep. "Heaven is not improved by it, Nanny, and heaven does not approve. What are we going to do?" "Hush." Nanny detested weeping men. "It can't be as bad as all that. There isn't a sniff of low blood in Melina's veins. Whatever blight this child has will respond to Nanny's treatment. Trust Nanny." "I trusted in the unnamed God," sobbed Frex. "Well, we don't always work at cross purposes, God and Nanny," said Nanny. She knew this was blasphemous, but she couldn't resist a jibe as long as Frex's resistance was down. "But don't worry. I won't breathe a word to Melina's family. We'll sort all this out in a flash, and no one needs to know. The baby has a name." "Elphaba," he said. "After Saint Elphaba of the waterfall?" "Yes." "A fine old name. You'll use the common nickname Fabula, I suppose." Who even knows if she'll live long enough to grow into a nickname? Frex sounded as if he hoped this would be the case. "Interesting country. Are we in Wend Hardings yet?" Nanny asked, to change the subject. But Frex had folded up inside, barely bothering to guide the horses on the correct track. The country was filthy, depressed, peasant-ridden. Nanny began to wish she had not set out in her best traveling gown. Roadside robbers might expect to find gold in such a refined, older-looking woman. But they would be right, for Nanny sported a golden garter stolen years ago from her ladyship's boudoir. What a humiliation if the garter should turn up these years later on Nanny's Nanny's well-turned, if aging thigh. But Nanny's fears were unfounded, for the carriage arrived without incident in the yard of a minister's cottage. "Let me see the baby first," said Nanny. "It will be easier and fairer on Melina if I know what we're dealing with." This wasn't hard to arrange, as Melina was out cold thanks to the pinlobble leaves, which while the baby in a basket on the table wailed softly. Nanny drew up a chair so she wouldn't hurt herself if she fainted dead away. Frex put the basket on the floor where I can look into it. Frex obliged, and then went to return to the horses and carriage to Buffy, who rarely needed them for mayoral duties, but loaned them out to earn a little political capital. The infant was wrapped in linens, Nanny saw, and the baby's mouth and ears were strapped with a sling. The nose looked like a knob of a bad mushroom poking up for air, and the eyes were open. Nanny leaned closer. The child couldn't be, 3 weeks old? Yet, as Nanny moved from side to side, looking at the profile of the forehead from this angle and that, as to judge the shape of the mind, the little girl's eyes tracked back and forth. They were brown and rich, the color of overturned earth, flecked with mica. There was a network of fragile lines at each soft angle beneath where the eyelids met, as if the girl had been bursting the blood threads from the exertion of watching and understanding. And the skin, oh yes, the skin was green as sin. Not an ugly color, Nanny thought, just not a human color. She reached out and let her finger drift across the baby's cheek. The infant flinched, and her backbone arched, and the wrapping, which was tucked securely around the child from neck to toes, split open like a husk. Nanny gritted her teeth and was determined not to be cowed. The baby had exposed herself sternum to groin, and the skin on her chest was the same remarkable color. "Have you ever touched this child, you two?" murmured Nanny. She put her palm down on the child's heaving chest, her fingers covering the almost invisible baby nipples, and then slid her hand down to where she could check the apparatus below. The child was wet and soiled, but felt made according to standard design. The skin was the same miracle of pliant smoothness that Melina had possessed as an infant. "Come to Nanny, you horrid little thing, you." Nanny leaned to pick the baby up, mess and all. The baby swiveled to avoid the touch. Her head beat itself against the rush bottom of the basket. "You've been dancing in the womb, I see," said Nanny. "I wonder to whose music. Such well-developed muscles. No, you're not getting away from me. Come here, you little demon. Nanny doesn't care. Nanny likes you." She was lying through her teeth, but unlike Frex, she believed some lies were sanctioned by heaven. And she got her hands on Alphaba, settled her into her lap. There, Nanny waited, crooning every now and again, then looking away, looking out the window, cover herself and keep herself from vomiting. She rubbed the baby's belly to calm the girl down, but there was no calming her down, not yet anyway. Melina propped herself up on her elbows in the late afternoon when Nanny brought in a tray with tea and bread. "I have made myself at home," said Nanny, "and I have made friends with your tiny darling. Now, come to your senses, sweetheart, and let me give you a kiss." Melina allowed herself to be coddled. "Oh, Nanny, thank you for coming. Have you seen the little monster?" "She's adorable," said Nanny. "Don't lie, and don't be soft," said Melina. "If you're going to help, you must be honest. We need not go into it now, but I will have to know everything, my sweet, so we can decide what's to be done." They sipped their tea, and because Alphaba had fallen asleep at last, it seemed like for a few moments that the old days at Cowan Grounds, where Melina would come home from afternoon walks with lissom young gentry on the make and boast of their masculine beauty to a Nanny who pretended she had not noticed. In fact, as the weeks went on, Nanny noticed quite a few disturbing things about the baby. For one thing, Nanny tried to remove the baby's bandages, but Alphaba seemed intent on biting her own hands off. The teeth inside that pretty thin-lipped mouth were indeed monstrous. She would bite a hole through the basket if she were left unfettered. She went after her own shoulder and scraped it raw. She looked as if she were strangling. "Can't a barber be had to pull the teeth out?" Nanny asked. At least until the baby learns some self-control." "You are out of your mind," Melina says. "It will be all over the valley that the little marrow is green. We'll keep the jaw strapped up until we solve the skin problem." However in the world did her skin become green? Nanny wondered stupidly, for Melina blanched and Frex reddened, and the baby held its breath as if trying to turn blue to please them all. Nanny had to slap her to make her breathe again. Nanny interviewed Frex out in the yard. After the double blow of the birth and his public embarrassment, he was not yet up to professional engagements and sat whittling prayer beads out of oak, scouring and inscribing them with emblems of the namelessness of God. Nanny set Elphaba down inside. She had an unreasonable fear of being overheard by this infant, and worse, of being understood. Nanny sat scooping out a pumpkin for supper. I don't suppose, Frex, that you have green in your family background, she began, knowing full well that Melena's powerful grandfather would have confirmed such a predisposition before agreeing to let his granddaughter marry a unionist minister. Of all the chances she had. Our family isn't about money or earthly power, said Frex, taking no offense for once, but I'm a descendant in a direct line from 6 ministers before me, father to son. We're well regarded in spiritual circles, as Melena's family is in parlors into the court of Ozma. And no, there is no green anywhere. I've never heard of such a thing before in my family. Nanny nodded. Well, all right. I was only asking. I know you're gooder than goblin martyrs. But, Frex said humbly, Nanny, I think we caused this thing to happen. My tongue slipped on the day of the birthday. I announced the devil was coming. I meant the clock of the time dragon. But I suppose those words unlocked room for the devil? The child is no devil, snapped Nanny. She's no angel either, she thought, but she kept that to herself. On the other hand, Frex continued, sounding more secure, she may have been cursed by Melena accidentally, who took my remark the wrong way and wept about it. Maybe Melena opened herself up through a window through which an unattached sprite entered and colored the child. On the very day she is to be born, said Nanny, that's a capable sprite. Is your goodness so exalted you attract the truly high-powered among the spirits of aberration? Frex shrugged. A few weeks earlier, he would have just nodded, but his confidence was shattered with his abject failure in the rush margins. He did not dare suggest what he feared. The child's abnormality was a punishment for his failure to protect his flock from pleasure fate. Well, Nanny asked practically, if through a curse the goods were damaged, then through what might the ill be overturned? An exorcism, said Frex. Are you empowered? If I'm successful at changing her, we'll know I'm empowered, said Frex. But now that he had a goal, his spirits brightened. He would spend some days in fasting, rehearsing prayers, and collecting supplies for the arcane ritual. While he was off in the woods, and Elphaba napping, Nanny perched on the side of Melena's hard marriage mattress. Frex wonders if his predictions that the devil was coming has caused a window in you to open, letting an imp pass through to spoil that baby, said Nanny. She was crocheting an edge of lace, clumsily. She had never excelled at piecework, but she liked handling the polished ivory crochet hook. I wonder if you opened another window? Melena, groggily from pinlobble leaves as usual, arched an eyebrow in confusion. Did you sleep with someone other than Frex? Nanny asked. Don't be mad, said Melena. I know you, honey, said Nanny. I'm not saying you're a good wife, but when you had boys buzzing around you in your parents' orchard, you changed your perfume undergarments more than once a day. You were lusty and sneaky and good at it. And if I'm not looking down at you, but don't pretend to me that your appetites weren't healthy. Melena buried her face in the pillow. Oh, for those days, she wailed. It's not that I don't love Frex, I just hate being better than the local peasant idiots. Well, now that this green child brings you down to their level, you ought to be pleased, said Nanny meanly. Nanny, I love Frex, but he leaves me alone so often. I would kill for some tinker to pass by and sell me more than just a tin coffee pot. I would pay well for someone less godly and more imaginative. Well, that's a question for the future, said Nanny sensibly. I'm asking you about the past, the recent past, since your marriage. But Melena's face was vague and blurry. She nodded, she shrugged, she rocked her head. The obvious theory is an elf. I wouldn't have sex with an elf, Melena shrieked. No more would I, said Nanny, but green does give one pause. Are there elves in the neighborhood? There's a gaggle of them, tree elves, up over the hill someplace. But if possible, they are more moronic than the fair citizens of Marsh Margins. Really, Nanny, I've never even seen one, only from a distance. The idea is repulsive. Elves giggle at everything. Do you know that? One of them falls out of an oak tree and smashes his skull like a rotten turnip, and they gather and giggle and then forget about him. It's insulting of you to even bring this up. Get used to it. If we don't find a way out of this quagmire, well, the answer is no. Then someone else. Someone handsome enough on the outside, but carrying a germ, and then maybe you got caught. Melina looked shocked. She hadn't thought of her own health since Alpha was born. Could she be at risk? The truth, said Nanny. We must know. The truth, said Melina distantly. Well, it's unknowable. What are you trying to say? I don't know the answer to your question, and Melina explained. Yes, the cottage was off the beaten track, and of course she never passed more than the curtest greetings with local farmers and fishermen and thickheads. But more travelers took to the hills and woods than you would credit. Often she had sat listless and lonely while Frex was off preaching. She had found comfort in giving passerbys a simple meal and a buoyant conversation. And more? But on those boring days, Melina muttered, she had taken to chewing pin-lobble leaves. When she were awake, the sun were setting. When she would awake because the sun was setting, or Frex was there frowning or grinning at her, she remembered very little. You mean you indulge in adultery and you don't even have the benefit of a good, saucy memory about it? Nanny was scandalized. I don't know what I did, said Melina. I wouldn't choose to. I mean, not if I was thinking clearly. But I remember once when a tinker with a funny accent gave me a draught of some heady brew from a green glass bottle. And I had rare, expansive dreams, Nanny, of the other world, of cities of glass and smoke, noise and color. I tried to remember. So you could have well been raped by elves. Won't your grandfather be pleased to learn how Frex is taking care of you? Stop, cried Melina. No, well, if I don't know what's to be done. Nanny lost her temper at the last. Everyone's being irresponsible. If you can't remember whether your marriage vows have been broken or not, there's not much good in acting like an offended saint. We can always drown the baby and start over. Just try drowning that thing, muttered Nanny. I pity the poor lake that asked to take her in. Later, Nanny went through all of Melina's small collections of medicine, herbs, drops, roots, brandies, leaves. She was wondering, without much hope, if she could invent something that might cause the girl's skin to blanch. In the back of the chest, Nanny found the green glass bottle spoken of by Melina. The light was bad, and her eyes weren't strong, but she could make out the words, Miracle Elixir, on a piece of paper pasted to the front. Though she had a native skill in healing, Nanny was unable to come up with a skin-changing potion. Bathing the child in cow's milk didn't make the skin white either. But the child would not allow herself to be lowered into a pail of lake water. She twisted like a cat in panic. Nanny kept on with the cow's milk. It left a horrid sour stink if she did not rub it off thoroughly with a cloth. Frex organized an exorcism. It involved candles and hymns. Nanny watched from a distance. The man was beady-eyed, perspiring with effort even though the mornings were colder and colder. Elphaba slept in her binding cloth in the middle of the carpet, oblivious to the sacrament. Nothing happened. Frex fell, exhausted and spent, and cradled his green daughter with the crook of his arm, as if finally embracing the proof of some undisclosed sin. Melina's face hardened. There was only one thing left to do. Nanny gathered the courage to bring it up on the day she was to leave back for the Cowan grounds. We see that the peasant treatments don't work, said Nanny, and spiritual intercession has failed. Do you have the courage to think about sorcery? Is there someone local who can magic the green venom out of the child? Frex was up and lashing out at Nanny, swinging his fists. Nanny fell backward off her stool, and Melina bobbed around her, shrieking. How dare you, cried Frex. In this household, isn't this green girl insult enough? Sorcery's the refuge of the amoral. When it isn't out-and-out charlatanism, it is dangerously evil, contracts with the demons. Nanny said, Oh, preserve me, you fine, fine man. You know enough to fight fire with fire? Nanny, enough, said Melina. Hitting a feeble old woman, said Nanny, hurt. Who only tries to help? The next morning, Nanny packed her valise. There was nothing more she could do, and she wasn't willing to live out the rest of her life with a fanatical hermit and a ruined baby, even for the sake of Melina. Frex drove Nanny back to the inn at Stone's Bar End for the coach and four to take her home. Nanny knew Melina might as well think about killing the child, or might still think about killing the child, but somehow she doubted it. Nanny held her valise to her ample bosom, fearing bandits again. Inside her valise was hidden her gold garter. She could always claim it was planted there without her knowledge, whereas she would have been hard to claim if it had been planted on her leg in the same circumstance. She'd also squirreled away the ivory crochet hook, 3 of Frex's prayer beads because she liked the carvings, and the pretty green glass bottle left by some itinerant salesman selling, apparently, dreams and passion and somnolence. She didn't know what she thought. Was Elphaba devil's spawn? Was she half elf? Was she punishment for her father's failure as a preacher, or for her mother's sloppy morals and bad memory? Or was she merely a physical ailment, a blight like a misshapen apple or a 5-legged calf? Nanny knew her worldview was foggy and chaotic, pestered by demons, faith, and folk science. It didn't escape her attentions, however, that both Melina and Frex had believed uncompromisingly that they would have a boy. Frex was the 7th son of a 7th son, and to add that to the powerful equation that he was descended from 6 ministers in a row. Whatever child of either or any sex could dare follow in so auspicious a line. Perhaps, thought Nanny, little green Elphaba chose her own sex, her own color, and to hell with her parents. Yay. Okay, we're gonna take a little break. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, we're kind of plowing through this. I'm excited. We're already 30 pages in. So yeah, we got a green baby that everybody just wants to keep killing. Everybody's obsessed with the concept of drowning this poor little child. She's just a baby. So it couldn't have been easy. Yes. For the last few streams, you've been playing Lego Fortnite Battle Pass? Yes, that is right, because it's so good. I love Lego Fortnite Battle Pass. It's so fun. Yes. That would be a really good stream, actually. I love painting. Put some little happy trees. Yes. Little happy trees right there. According to the time dragon clock, this hoe is thirsty. Y'all drink water today? Guess I'm gonna have to take a break and get some. A case of water on your bed? I keep mostly stuffed animals and pillows and blankets on my bed. Water on the bed. Maybe like a bottle near the bed. But a whole case on the bed. My bed is half plushies and half water bottles. Well, you flex. You water drinking bitch you. That's crazy. And then my iPad where I draw on. Where is my iPad? I haven't drawn in several days. I think it's in my bag because I took it over to my friend's. And I haven't drawn since then. Have you ever considered doing like drawing streams, Law? Because that'd be something to watch for sure. Maybe not all the drawings on this site. Okay. I'm gonna go grab some more water. And yeah, maybe we'll just do a little 20-minute more reading. We'll just do a full 2 hours, right? Like I said, an hour, we'll do a full 2 hours. We'll do 20 more minutes, but let me take a little break first, grab some water and more aquaphor for my lips. So yes. Whoosh. That's so, I honestly am like, I want a crown so bad. It would just go so well with my wand. Like, where is it? That's exactly how I do art, is I do my art and then I'm like, who, me? No, I could never. And then like a week later I'm like, oh yes, I can do that. I love that. You can never force the art, and at that point you're not making art. Like, it's not organic. It's not genuine. I mean, maybe it could be, but I feel like it's much more organic in the moment. Yes. So yes, we will be right back. We're just gonna go grab some water. You guys get something to drink. Do little stretches if you have it. if I was getting paid, then yeah, here's the problem is you could pay me and I still could not promise you that the art will art, you know. I've tried doing cosplay commissions before and like it just doesn't work out because I get even more stressed out. I'm like, you've paid me and now I can't make art happen. Like, and like, so yes. Artists do what they can when they can. And I thank each and every one of you every day for doing that because that's like the fact that you even can, that's crazy. And so then, like, yeah, just art when you can art. Don't force it. It's fine. We love when you come out with the stuff you come out. We'll be patient. It's fine. But anyway, I'm gonna go get some water. Get some water yourselves. Stretch, and I'll leave you with some gentle piano. Okay, be right back. Woo. And I feel this loathing. There's a strange exhilaration in such tone. It's so pure, it's so strong. Though I do admit it came on fast, still like to believe that it can last. Or I will be loathing, truly, deeply loathing my whole life long. Okay, we got some new water. We got our aquaphor. And I think we're just gonna read a teeny little bit more. I saw Lego has done a crossover now with Kaiju number 8. So I don't know if that's available in the Lego mode, because you know that I only play Lego Fortnite Battle Pass, but I suppose I will have to play regular Lego Fortnite Battle Pass and not the Lego version of Lego Fortnite Battle Pass in order to get the Kaiju number 8 stuff. And like, that's fine, but like, is it in Lego Fortnite Battle Pass? That's really my main concern, my main worry. So I'm eager to play Lego Fortnite Battle Pass and see if I can be Kaiju number 8 in actual Legos, or if that's just limited to the Battle Royale modes, because I will be very, very sad and write a nice little letter to Fortnite begging them, pleading them, saying, why did you not code a skin in for the Lego Fortnite Battle Pass? It's the only mode of your game that I enjoy, and I would love to be Kaiju number 8 in my silly little Lego world, please and thank you. So that is my plug currently. While I'm on that note, Epic Games, why are you doing so much? You're doing a lot. You're doing almost too much. Chill. Calm down. You're making Riot look bad, right? Okay? Like, you know, and then on that same note, Riot, the fuck? What is up? Why are we doing this skin loot box asshole system? Like, make it available to purchase and make it a reasonable amount, okay? Like, heartfelt. Look at what Epix is doing, and they're doing it for free. Mostly. I think I've spent $8. I've spent way more than $8 on you, Riot. Where the fuck is my free shit? You're like, here's the anniversary skin. Like, you know that shit was not cute. So anyway, done with the non-spawn stuff, done with the plugged content. I want to play Fortnite, so I'm gonna read a little more. I also put on pants. It's really cold in here. This is why I'm worried I might be sick myself, because I'm normally pretty cold, but I've had the heater on me all day and I'm still pretty chilly. So we're gonna return to our novel. Yeah. I'm gonna mute the music for the recording. I realized it was going earlier, and like, oops, like, it's just gonna be in the final cut or not. I don't know. Maybe I'll mix it better. Maybe I won't. All of this is kind of a test. I might re-record the entire thing entirely because I just didn't like some of the things I did. Usually I like recording, editing, producing my content before posting it. This has all been live, so like, you know, sorry I fuck up some of the words and re-say some of the sentences, but like, what do you want from me? What do you want from me? I want you to be a paid actor. Me too, girl. Me too. Just a little bit more. Just a little bit. When you come to my stream, I might extend myself just a little bit. Almost every time. It's my favorite thing to do, is to tell you half-truths about, like, time things. I'm like, oh yes, we'll be done in an hour, and it's been 2. Yes, shortly we'll be done, I'm sure. Or not. So anyways, We are still in part 1 of Wicked Munchkin Landers. You're like, when do we get to shiz? When do we get to the important parts? When do we get to you, Glinda? I'm so glad you asked. Not soon enough, right? But it's not called Life and Times of Glinda Upland. It's called Wicked. Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West. So let's keep reading about her boring, shitty family life because this shit is sad, y'all. Like, I don't know. Relatable though, right? Is it relatable content out there for any of you? Because like hashtag relate, right? Like I loved this book growing up, but I digress. All right, back to my little disclaimer. I love you guys. Thank you for joining us. And still in Munchkin Landers, the Quadling Glassblower. For one short wet month early in the year, the drought lifted. Spring tipped in like green well water, frothing at the hedges, bubbling at the roadside, splashing from the cottage roof in the garlands of ivy and stringflower. Milena went about the yard in a state of mild undress, so that she could feel the sun on her pale skin and the deep warmth that she had missed all winter. Strapped in her chair in the doorway, Elphaba, now a year and a half old, hit her breakfast minnow with the bowl of her spoon. "Oh, eat the thing, don't mash it," said Milena, but mildly. Since the child's chin-sling had been removed, mother and daughter had begun to pay some attention to each other. To her surprise, Milena sometimes found Elphaba endearing, the way a baby should be. This view was the only thing she had seen since leaving the elegant mansion of her family, and the only thing she would ever gaze upon again. The wind-swept surface of Illswater, the distant dark stone cottages and chimneys of rush margins on the other side, the hills lying in a torpor beyond. She would go mad. This world was nothing but water and want. If a frolic of elves scampered through the yard, she would leap on them for company, for sex, for murder. "Your father is a fraud," she said to Elphaba, "off finding himself all winter, leaving me with only you for company. Eat that breakfast, for you'll get no more if you throw it on the ground." Elphaba picked up the fish and threw it on the ground. "Your father is a charlatan," continued Milena. He used to be very good in bed for a religious man. And this is how I know his secret. Holy men are supposed to be above earthly pleasures, but your father enjoyed his midnight wrestling once upon a time. We must never tell him we know he's a humbug. It would break his heart. We don't want to break his heart, do we? And then Milena burst into a high peal of laughter. Elphaba's face was unsmiling, unchanging. She pointed to the fish. Breakfast. Breakfast in the dirt. "Breakfast for the bugs," Milena said as she dropped the collar of her spring robe a little lower and the pink yoke of her bare shoulders gyrated. "Shall we go walk by the edge of the lake today, and maybe you'll drown?" But Elphaba would never drown, never, because she would not go near the lake. "Maybe we'll go out in a boat and tip over," Milena shrieked. Elphaba cocked her head to one side as if listening for some part of her mother not intoxicated with leaves and wine. The sun swept out from behind a cloud. Elphaba scowled. Milena's robe dropped lower. Her breasts worked their way out from between the dirty ruffles of the collar. "Look at me," thought Milena, "showing my breasts to the child I couldn't give milk for fear of amputation. I who was the rose of nest hardings, I who was the beauty of my generation, and now I am reduced to the company I don't even want, my own squirming, thorny little girl. She is more grasshopper than girl, with those angular little thighs, those arching eyebrows, those poking fingers. She's about the business of learning like any child, but she takes no delight in the world. She pushes and breaks and nibbles on things without any pleasure. And she has a mission to taste and measure all of the disappointments of life, in which rush margins is amply supplied. Mercy from the unnamed God, she's a creep, she is. She is. Or we might take a walk around the woods today and pick the last of the winter berries. Milena was full of guilt about her lack of motherly feeling. We could put them in a pie. Can we put them in a pie, shall we, honey? Elphaba didn't speak yet, but she nodded. She began to wiggle to get down. Milena started a clapping gesture Elphaba took no notice of. The child grunted and pointed to the ground. and arched her long, elegant legs to illustrate her desire. Then she gestured to the gate leading from the kitchen garden to the hen yard. There was a man at the uprights of the gate, leaning, shy, and hungry-looking, with the skin the color of roses at twilight, a dusky, shadowy red. He had a couple of leathern satchels on his shoulders and back, and a walking staff, and a dangerously handsome, hollow-looking face. Melina screeched and caught herself, directed her voice to a lower register. It had been so long since she had spoken to anyone but a whining toddler. "Good glory, you startled us," she cried. "Are you searching for some breakfast?" She lost the social touch. For instance, her breast should not be staring at him so, yet she did not clasp her gown. "Please, to forgive a sudden appearance by a strange foreigner at Lady's Gate," said the man. "Forgiven, of course," she said impatiently. "Come in where I can see you. Come in, come in." Elphaba had seen so few people in her life that she hid one eye behind her spoon and peeked with the other eye. The man approached. His movements showed the clumsiness of exhaustion. He was large of ankle and thick of foot, slender about the waist and shoulders, and thick again at the neck. It had been as if he had been made on a lathe, and worked too briefly at the extremities. His hands, letting down the satchels, seemed like beasts with mind of their own. They were outsized and splendid. "Traveler, not to know where he is," said the man. "2 nights to cross the hills from downhill Cornings, to look for the inn at 3 Dead Trees, to rest." "You're lost. You veered," said Melina, deciding not to be perplexed at his scrambled words. "No matter. Let me fix you a meal, and you can tell me your story." Her hands were at her hair, which once used to be thought precious as spun brass. At least it was clean. The man was sleek and fit. When he removed his cap, his hair fell out in greasy hanks, sunset red. He washed at the pump, stripping off his shirt, and Melina noticed it was nice to see a waist on a man again. Frex, bless him, had run to plumpness in the year and some since Elphaba's birth. Were all quadlings this delicious dusty rose color? This man's name, Melina learned, was Turtleheart, and he was a glass blower from Auvilles, in a little-known quadling country. She bundled up her breasts at last, reluctantly. Elphaba squawked to be let loose. Without so much as flinching, the visitor unbuckled her. And swept her in the air and caught her again. The child crowed with surprise, even delight, and Turtleheart repeated the trick. Melina took advantage of his concentration on the brat to scoop up the uneaten minnow from the dirt and rinse it off. She plopped it among the eggs and mashed heart root, hoping that Elphaba would not suddenly learn to speak and embarrass her. It would be just like a child to do that. But Elphaba was too charmed by this man to fuss or complain. She didn't even whine when Turtleheart came to the bench and sat down to eat. She crawled between his sleek, hairless calves, for he had shucked off his leggings, and moaned some private tune with a satisfied smirk on her face. Melina found herself jealous of a female not yet 2 years old. She wouldn't have minded sitting on the ground between Turtleheart's legs. "I've never met a quadling before," she said, too loudly, too brightly. The months of solitude had made her forget her manners. "My family would have never had quadlings to dine. Not that there were many, or even any for all I know, in the farmlands around my family's estate. The stories make out that quadlings were sneaky and incapable of telling the truth." "How can a quadling answer to such a charge if a quadling is given always to lie?" He smiled at her. She melted like butter on warm bread. "I'll believe anything you say." He told her of the life and the outrages of the Auvilles, the houses rotting gently into the swamp, and the harvests of snails and milkweed, the customs of communal living and ancestor worship. "So you believe your ancestors are with you?" she prodded. "I don't mean to be nosy, but I've become interested in religion despite myself." "Does Lady to believe ancestors are with her?" She could hardly focus on the question. So bright were his eyes, and so wonderful was it to be called Lady. Her shoulders straightened. "My immediate ancestors couldn't be farther away," she admitted. "I mean my parents. They're still living, but so uninteresting to me that they might as well be dead." When dead, they may too visit Lady often. They're not welcome. Go away." She laughed, shooing. "You mean ghosts? They better not." "That's what I'd call the worst of both worlds if there is an other land." "There is an other world," he said with certainty. She felt chilled. She scooped Elphaba up and held her tightly. Elphaba sagged as if boneless in her arms, neither fussing nor returning the hug. just to fall limply, or just falling limply, just falling limp from the novelty of being touched. Are you a seer? Said Melina. Turtle heart to glow blasts, he said. He seemed to mean that as an answer. Melina was suddenly reminded of dreams she used to have, of exotic places she knew too dull to invent. She was too dull to invent. Married to a minister, and I don't know that I believe in another world, she admitted. She hadn't meant to say that she was married, although she supposed the child implicated her. But Turtleheart had finished talking. He had put down his plate, he had left the minnow, and took from his satchels a small pot and pipe, and some sacks of sand and soda and ash and other minerals. Might Turtleheart to thank Lady for her welcome? He asked, and she nodded. He built up the kitchen fire and sorted and mixed his ingredients. He arranged the utensils and cleaned a bowl of his pipe with a special rag folded in its own pouch. Elphaba sat clump-like, her green hands on her green toes, curiosity on her sharp, pinched face. Melina had never seen glass blown, just as she had never seen paper made, cloth woven, or logs hewn from tree trunks. It seemed as marvelous to her as the local stories of the traveling clock he had hexed her husband into, the professional paralysis from which he still hadn't quite escaped, though he had tried. Turtleheart hummed a note through his nose, or the pipe, as he blew in a regular bulb of hot greenish ice. It steamed and hissed in the air. He knew what to do with it. He was a wizard of glass. Melina had to hold Elphaba back to keep her from burning her hands as she reached for it. In what seemed like no time at all, and what felt like magic, the glass had gone from being semi-liquid and abstract to a hardening, cooling reality. It was a smooth, impure circle, like a slightly oblong plate. All the while Turtleheart worked with it, Melina thought of her own character, going from youthful ether to hardening shell, transparently empty. Breakable, too. But before she could lose herself in remorse, Turtleheart took her 2 hands and passed them near, but not touching, the flat surface of the glass. Lady to talk with ancestors, he said. But she would not struggle to connect with old, boring dead people in the other land, not when his huge hands covered hers. She breathed through her nose to suppress the smell of breakfast in an unwashed mouth, the fruit in 1 glass of wine, or was it 2? She thought she might well faint. Look in glass, he urged her. She could only look at his neck and see his raspberry honey-colored chin. He looked for her. Elphaba came and steadied herself with a small hand on his knee and peered in too. Husband is near, said Turtleheart. Was this a prophecy through a glass dish, or was he asking her a question? But he went on. Husband is traveling on a donkey to bring an elderly woman to visit you. Is ancestor to visit? Is old nursemaid, probably, Melina said. She was sloping downward into his crippled syntax in unabashed sympathy. Can you really see that in all there? He nodded. Elphaba nodded too, but at what? How much time do we have to get before he gets here? She asked. Till this evening. They did not speak another word until sunset. They banked the fire and hooked Elphaba into a harness and sat her down in front of the cooling glass, which they hung on a string like a lens or a mirror. It seemed to mesmerize and calm her, and she did not even gnaw absent-mindedly at her wrist or toes. They left the door to the cottage open so that from time to time they could peer in from the bed to check on the child, who, in the glare of a sunny day, would not be able to focus her eyes to see in the house shadows, and who anyway never turned to look. Turtleheart was unbearably beautiful. Melina dragon-snaked with him, covering him with her mouth, poured him in her hands, heated and cooled and shaped his luminosity. He filled her emptiness. They were washed and dressed, with supper mostly made, when the donkey brayed 1/2 a mile down the lake. Melina brushed. Turtleheart was back at the pipe, blowing again. Elphaba turned and looked in the direction of the donkey's serrated statement. Her lips, which always looked black against the new apple color of his skin, twisted tight, chewed against each other. She bit her lower lip as if thinking, but she did not bleed. She had learned to manage the teeth somewhat through trial and error. She had put her hands on the shining disc. The glass circlet caught the last blue of the sky until it looked like a magic mirror showing nothing but silver cold water within. Let's see. What did I do? I think we'll do one more chapter. But I need to take just like a quick 20-second break to check on something. So I will be right back and we'll do one more chapter, I think. And then I think that'll be it. So yeah, BRB. There we go. Much better. La da da. Keep forgetting to hit stop and start on recording, which is why I'm not the greatest with pre-productions. I'm great with post. So, yes, yes, how nice. We shall continue the readings. I said we'll do another chapter, you know. Maybe we'll do another one. I don't know. Another one. Again, thank you guys for hanging out with us, vibing with us. I hope your evenings are going super chill. I hope you guys have drank your water and done like a bare minimum amount of stretching and or standing today. Yes. How healthy. Yeah, so before we continue with more reading, what do you guys think of Turtle Heart? Like, aw, Daddy just shows up, like, you know, looking all hot and fresh or whatever, and then like, it's like, I'm gonna just blow you some glass after I've been like wandering the woods for days. Like, okay, weird, but whatever. Like, I'm here for it. I'm here for. But why? Why have you been in the woods? What have you been up to? It's fine. We don't have to talk about it. You're handsome. Take your shirt off and like just make more glass shit. It's cool. Do art. Make art. Just do it. Right? We love an artist. So yeah, Eternal Heart. Spicy. He low-key reads the future, right? He's or clairvoyant at least. He knew that Husband was coming home with a old lady. Who you guys think the old lady is? I'm pretty sure it's Nanny, but also it's been like 20 years since I've read this book, so it's hard for me to like really remember all the details. I just remember some of the major things that happen. You know, it's not my story, it's Elphaba's story. So, yeah, Turtle Heart's pretty crazy, pretty interesting. They're definitely gonna fuck, like, obviously, right? Like, we're not just gonna introduce this handsome ass man that we're literally showing our titties to for us not to seal the deals. So they're definitely gonna fuck. Spoiler alert, pretty sure they're gonna have a kid. I don't know. That would be, you know, there's the Wicked Witch of the West and the Wicked Witch of the East. There's two of them, and those hoes as sisters. We do know that much. So, yeah. And yes, flashing them yitties and no smashing would be a crime. That is what I'm saying. And I don't know everything. We should do some research about Gregory, the person who wrote this fan fiction. But I would say that they would be on the board with the smashing, right? Like, I would say that they agree that it would be a crime to be out here just like giving up the goods. Hot man from another land comes into town, like, what the fuck? He's lost, he's hungry. Let me just take care of him and then take care of him, you know? That's what I'm saying. Like, absolute crime. So, in order for this book to not be completely scandalocious, they're gonna have to fuck. And if I have anything to say about it, it's gonna be sooner rather than later, right? So, hmm, hmm, hmm. Guess we'll just have to, continue. Figure out what happens. Sorry, I've been watching a lot of Traders, and I don't know if you guys have seen that show, Traitors. Traitors. I thought it was Traders, Traders at first. It's Traitors, Traitors. I don't feel like there's an E in there. I feel like that's right, but maybe I'm probably wrong. This is why I lost the spelling bee. I can only do up into encyclopedia, and then the one after that, I don't even remember what the word is because I'm so traumatized by not being able to spell it right. Fuck all that shit. Okay. Anyways, thank you, beautiful people, for being here with us today. I love you. I hope that it is nice and cozy wherever you are. Yes, there's my message for you now. Okay, I gotta get a better bookmark. And I actually have to hit the record button. God. One day, I'll have automated processes for everything. But until then, there we go. Boof. Yes. I am wonderful. So good. Alright, so continuing in our saga in Munchkin Landers in the book Wicked, we are on this chapter now. Geographies of the seen and the unseen. So fascinating. All the way from Stonespire End, where Frex met her coach, Nanny complained. Go figure, I told you. Lumbago, weak kidneys, fallen arches, aching gums, sore haunches. Frex wanted to say, and how about your swollen ego? Though he had been out of circulation for a while, and he knew such a remark would be rude. Nanny flounced and petted herself, clinging determinedly to her seat until they arrived at the lodge near Rush Margins. Melina greeted Frex with affecting shyness. My breastplate, my backbone, she murmured. She was slender after a hard winter, her cheekbones more prominent. Her skin looked scoured as if by an artist's scratched brush. But she had always had the look of etching in the flesh. She was usually bold with her kisses, and found her reticence alarming until he realized there was a stranger in the shadows. Then, after introductions, Nanny and Melina fussed to get a meal on the table, and Frex put out some oats for the sorry nag who had to pull the carriage. When this was done, he went to sit in the spring evening light and to meet his daughter again. Elphaba was cautious around him. He found in his pouch a trinket he had whittled for her, a little sparrow with a cunning beak and upraised wings. Look, Fabela, Fabala, whatever nickname he's trying to give her that I hate. Fabula. Ugh. Look, Fabula, he whispered. Melina hated the derivative, so he used it. It was his and Elphaba's private bond, the father-daughter pact against the world. Look what I found in the forest, a little maplewood bird. The child took the thing in her hands. She touched it softly and put its head in her mouth. Frex steeled himself to hear the inevitable splintering, to hold back his sigh of disappointment, but Elphaba did not bite. She sucked the head and looked at it again. Wet, it had greater life. You like it, Frex said. She nodded, and she began to feel its wings. Now that she was distracted, Frex could draw her between his knees. He nuzzled his crinkly bearded chin into her hair. She smelled like soap and wood smoke, and like char on toast, a good healthy smell. And he closed his eyes. It was good to be home. He had spent the winter in an abandoned shepherd's hut on the windward slope of Griffin's Head, praying and fasting, moving deeper inside than further outside himself. And why not? At home, he had felt the scorn of the people of the whole claustrophobic valley of Illswater. They had connected the time dragon slander story of a corrupt minister with the arrival of a deformed child. They had drawn their own conclusions. They avoided his chapel services. So, a sort of hermit's life, at least in his small intervals, he seemed to have both penance and preparation for something else. Something next. But what? He knew this life wasn't what Melina had originally expected, marrying him. With his bloodlines, Frex had looked primed for an elevation to proctor or even eventually bishop. He had imagined the happiness Melina would have as a society dame, presiding over feast day dinners and charity balls and episcopal teas. Instead, he could see her in the firelight, grating a last limp winter carrot onto a pan of fish. Here she wasted away, a partner in a difficult marriage on a cold, shadowy lakeshore. Frex had a notion that she wasn't sorry to see him go off from time to time, so that she'd be glad to see him come back. As he ruminated, his beard tickled Elphaba's neck, and she snapped the wings off her wooden sparrow. She sucked on it like a whistle. Twisting away from him, she ran to the glass lens hanging from the project eave and swatted at it. Don't, you'll break that, said her father. She cannot to break that. The traveler, the quadling, came from the sink where he had been washing up. She just turned her toy into a cripple, Frex said, pointing at the ruined birdling. She is herself pleased at the half things, Turtleheart said. I think the little girl wants to play with the broken pieces better. Frex didn't quite get it, but nodded. He knew that months away from the human voice had made him clumsy at first. The boy from the inn who had climbed Griffin's Head to deliver Nanny's request to be picked up at Stone Parr's End had obviously thought Frex a wild man, grunting and unkempt. Frex had to quote a little of the Oziad to indicate some sort of humanity. Land of green abandon, land of endless leaf, it was all that would come to him. Why can't she break it? Asked Frex. Because I do not make it to be broken, answered Turtleheart, but he smiled at Frex, not aggressively. And Elphaba wandered around with the shiny glass as if it were a toy, catching shadows, reflections, lights on its imperfect surface, almost as if she were playing. Where are you going? Asked Frex, just as Turtleheart was saying, Where are you from? I'm a Munchkinlander, said Frex. I to think all Munchkins shorter than you or I. The peasants, the farmers, yes, Frex said, but anyone with bloodlines worth tracing married into height somewhere along the way. And you? You're from Quadling country? Yes, said the Quadling. His reddish hair had been washed and drying into an airy nimbus. Frex was glad to see Melina so generous as to offer a passerby water to bathe in. Perhaps she was just adjusting to country life after all. Because, mercy, a Quadling ranked about as low on the social ladder as was possible to get and still be considered human. But I don't understand, said the Quadling. Oval's a small world. Until I to leave, I am not to know of hills, one beyond the other, and from the spiny backbones a world so wide around. The blurry, far away, to hurt my eyes, for I cannot make it seen. Please, sir, to describe the world you know. Frex picked up a stick. In the soil, he drew an egg on its side. What they taught me in lessons, he said. Inside the circle is Oz. Make an X. And he did so, through the oval. And roughly speaking, You have a pie in 4 sections. The top is Gillikin, full of cities and universities and theaters and civilized life, they say, and industry. He moved clockwise. East is Munchkinland, where we are now. Farmland, the breadbasket of Oz, except down in the mountainous south, these strokes in the distinct of Wend Hardings are the hills that you're climbing. He bumped and squiggled. Directly south at the center of Oz is Quadling country. Badlands, I'm told. Marshy, useless, infested with huge bugs and feverish airs. Turtleheart looked puzzled at this, but nodded. Then west, what they call Winky country. Don't know much about that except it's dry and unpopulated. And around, said Turtleheart, sandstone deserts north and west, fleckstone desert east and south. They used to say the desert sands were deadly poison, but that's just standard propaganda. Keeps invaders from Ev and Quox from trying to get in. Munchkinland is rich in desirable farming territory, and Gillikin's not bad either. In the Glickus up here, he scratched lines in the northeast on the border between Gillikin and Munchkinland, are the emerald mines in the famous Glickus canals. I gather there's a dispute whether Glickus is in Munchkinland I gather there's a dispute whether the Glickus is Munchkinlander or Glickenese, but I have no opinion on that. Turtleheart moved his hands over the drawing in the dirt, flexing his palms as if he were reading a map from above. But here? What is here? Flex wondered if he meant the air above Oz. You mean the realm of the unnamed god? The other land? Are you a unionist? Turtleheart is glassblower, said Turtleheart. I meant religiously. Turtleheart bowed his head and didn't meet Frex's eye. Turtleheart is not to know what name to call this. I don't know about quadlings, said Frex, as warming to a possible convert, but Glickenese and Munchkinlanders are largely unionist. Since Laurelinist paganism went out for centuries, there have been unionist shrines and chapels all over Oz. Are there none in Quadling country? Turtleheart does not recognize what is this, he said. And now respectable unionists are going in droves over to the pleasure faith, said Frex, snorting, or even TikTokism, which is hardly even qualifies as a religion. I want to clip that so bad. I lost my spot. And now respectable unionists are going into droves over to pleasure face, said Frex, snorting, or even TikTokism, which is hardly qualifies as a religion. To the ignorant, everything is spectacle these days. The ancient unionist monks and monks knew their place in the universe, acknowledging the life source too sublime to be named. And now we sniff up the skirts of every musty magician who comes along. Hedonists, anarchists, solipsists, individual freedom and amusement is all, as if sorcery has any moral component. Charms, alley magic, industrial strength sound and light displays, fake shape changers, charlatans, nabobs of necromancy, chemical and herbal wisdoms, humbug hedonists, selling their bog recipes and crone aphorisms and the schoolboy spells. It makes me sick. Turtleheart said, Shall Turtleheart to bring you water? Shall Turtleheart to lie you down? He put fingers soft as calf skin on the side of Frex's neck. Frex shivered and realized he had been shouting. Oh my god. He's gonna fuck both of them. Frex shivered and realized he had been shouting. Nanny and Melina were standing in the doorway with the pan of fish, silent. It's a figure of speech. I'm not sick, he said, but he was touched at the concern the foreigner had shown. I think we'll eat. And they did. Elphaba ignored her food except to prod the eyes out of the baked fish and then try to fit them onto her wingless bird. Nanny grumbled good-naturedly about the wind off the lake, her chills, her backbone, her digestion. Her gas was apparent from more than a few feet away, and Frex moved as discreetly as possible to be upwind. He found himself sitting right next to the quadling on the bench. So is all that clear to you? Frex pointed at a fork to the map of Oz. Is Emerald City to be where? Said Quadling, fish bones poking out from between his lips. Dead center, Frex said. And there's Ozma, said Turtleheart. Ozma, the ordained queen of Oz, or so they say, Frex said. Through the unnamed god, must be ruler of all in our hearts. How can an unnamed creature to rule, began Turtleheart. No theology at dinner, sang out Melina. That's a house rule dating from the start of our marriage, Turtleheart, and we obey it. Besides, I still harbor devotion to Lurline. Nanny made a face in Frex's direction. Old folks like me are allowed to. Do you know about Lurline, stranger? Turtleheart shook his head. We have no theology. If we have no theology, then surely we have no errant pagan nonsense, began Freck. But Nanny, being a guest and invoking a touch of deafness when it suited her, plowed on. Lurline is the fairy queen who flew over the sandy wastes and spotted the green and lovely land of Oz below. She left her daughter Ozma to rule the country in her absence and promised to return to Oz in its darkest hour. Ha, said Frex. No ha's at me, Nanny sniffed. I'm as entitled to my beliefs as you are, Frexbar the Godly. At least they don't get me into as much trouble as yours do. Nanny, govern your temper, Melina said, enjoying this. It's rubbish, said Frex. Ozma rules in the Emerald City, and anyone who's seen her or paintings of her knows she's from Glickenese stock. She's got the same broad band of forehead, the slightly gapped front teeth, and the frenzy of curly blonde hair, the quick shifts of mood, usually into anger, all characters of Glickenese peoples. You've seen her, Melina, tell 'em. Oh, she is elegant in her way, Melina admitted. The daughter of a fairy queen, said Turtleheart. More nonsense, said Freck. Not nonsense, said Nanny. They think she bears herself again and like a phoenix, said Frex. Ha and double ha. There have been 300 years of very different Ozmas. Ozma the Mendacious was a dedicated Mont who lowered the rulings in a bucket down from the topmost chamber in a cloister tower. She was as mad as a bung beetle. Ozma the Warrior conquered the Glickus, at least for a time, and commandeered the emeralds which were used to decorate that emerald city. Ozma the Librarian did nothing but read genealogies for her whole life long. And then there was Ozma the Scarcely Beloved, who kept pet ermines. She overtaxed the farmers to begin the system of the yellow brick road that they're still struggling to complete. Much luck to them, I say. Well, who is Ozma now? Asked Turtleheart. Actually, said Melina, I had the pleasure to meet the last Ozma at a social season in the Emerald City. My grandfather, the eminent Throp, had a townhouse. The winter I was 15, I was brought out into society there. She was Ozma the bilious because of a bad stomach. She was the size of a lake narwhal, but she was dressed beautifully. I saw her with her husband, Pastorius, at the Oz Festival Song and Sentiment. She is no longer the queen? Asked Turtleheart, confused. She died in an unfortunate accident involving some rat poison. Died, said Nanny. Or her spirit moved on to her next child, Ozma Tipitarius. The current Ozma is just around the age of Elphaba, said Melina, and so her father Pastorius is Ozma regent. The good man will rule until Ozma Tipitarius is old enough to take the throne. Turtleheart shook his head. Frex was annoyed because they had spent so much time talking about the worldly ruler and ignored the internal realm, and Nanny lapsed into a bout of indigestion for which they were all very sorry, olfactorily speaking. Anyways, even being irritated, Frex was glad to be home. Because of the beauty of Melina, she was almost glowing tonight because the sun had left the sky, and because of the surprise of Turtleheart, smiling in the unself-conscious next to him, maybe because of Turtleheart's religious emptiness, which Frex found challenging and appealing, almost tempting. Then there's a dragon beneath Oz in a hidden cavern, Nanny was saying to Turtleheart. The dragon who has dreamt the world and who will burn it in flames when he awakes. Shut up about that superstitious codswallop, shouted Frex. Elphaba, on all fours, advanced on the uneven planks of the floor. She bared her teeth as if she knew what a dragon was, as if she were pretending, and roared. Her green skin made her more persuasive, as if she were a dragon child. She roared again. Oh, sweetheart, don't, said Frex, and then she peed on the floor, sniffed her urine with satisfaction and disgust. The next chapter. Child's Play. One afternoon, towards the end of summer, Nanny said, There's a beast abroad. I've seen it at dusk several times, lurking in the ferns. What sort of creatures are native to these hills anyway? You don't find anything larger than a gopher, said Melina. They were at the side of the brook, working at laundry. The small spring wetness had long since ceased, and the drought had clamped its way down again. The stream was only a thin trickle. Elphaba, who had not come near the water, was stripping a wild pear tree of its stunted crop. She clung to the trunk with her hands and outturned feet, and threw her head around, catching some sour fruit with her teeth and then spitting seeds and stem on the ground. "This is larger than a gopher," said Nanny. "Trust me." "Have you bears?" "It could be a bear cub, though it moved mighty fast." "No bears. There's a rumor of rock tigers on the fell top, but tell me not a single one that's been sighted in ages. And rock tigers are notoriously skittish and shy. They don't come near human dwellings." "A wolf, then? Are there wolves?" Nanny let the sheet droop in the water. It could have been a wolf. "Nanny, you think you're in the desert. Wens Hardings is desolate, I agree, but it's a tame barrenness for all that. You're alarming me with all your wolf and tiger talk." Elphaba, who would not speak yet, made a low growl in the pocket of her throat. "I don't like it," said Nanny. "Let's finish up and dry these things back at the house. Enough is enough. Besides, I have other things I want to say to you. Let's give the child to Turtle Heart, and let's go off somewhere." She shuddered. "Somewhere safe." "What you have to say, you can say within earshot of Elphaba," said Melena. "You know she doesn't understand a word." "You confuse not speaking with not listening," said Nanny. "I think she understands plenty." "Look, she's smearing fruit on her neck like a cologne." "Like a war paint, you mean." "Oh, dour Nanny, stop being such a goose and scrub those sheets harder. They're filthy." "I need hardly ask whose sweat and leakage this is." "Oh, no, you needn't ask, but don't start moralizing at me. But you know Frex is bound to notice sooner or later. These energetic afternoon naps you take? Well, you've always had an eye for the fellow with a decent helping of sausage and hard-boiled eggs. Nanny, come! None of this is your affair." "More's the pity," said Nanny, sighing. "Isn't aging a cruel hoax? I trade my hard-won pearls of wisdom for a good romp with Uncle Flagpole any day." Melina flipped a handful of water in Nanny's face to shut her up. The old woman blinked and said, "Well, it's your garden. Plant there what you chose and reap what you may. What I want to talk about is the child, anyway." The girl, who was now squatting near the pear tree, eyes narrowed at something in the distance. She looked, thought Melena, like a sphinx, like a stone beast. A fly even landed on her face and walked across the bridge of her nose, and the child didn't flinch or squirm. Then suddenly she leaped and pounced, a naked green kitten, after an invisible butterfly. "What about her?" "Melena, she needs to get used to other children. She'll start talking a little bit if she sees the other chicks are talking. Talking among children is an overrated concept. Don't be glib. You know that she needs to get used to people other than us. She's not going to have an easy time of it anyhow, unless she sheds her greenery skin as she grows up. She needs the habits of conversation. Look, I give her chores to do. I warble nursery rhymes at her. Melena, why doesn't she respond like other children?" "She's boring. Some children are." "She ought to have other pups to play with. They would infect her with a sense of fun." "Frankly, Frex doesn't expect a child of his to be interested in fun," said Melena. "Fun is counted for overmuch in this world, Nanny. I agree with him on that." "So your dragon snaking with Turtle Heart is what? Devotional exercises?" "I said don't be catty, please," Melena said, focusing on the toweling, beating it with annoyance. Nanny would go on about this, but she was up to something, and Nanny had hit the nail on the head. There crept Turtle Heart into the cool shadows of the cottage, where Melena was tired from a morning's work in the vegetable garden. He covered her with a sense of holiness, and it was more than her undergarments that would drop away from her when they tumbled, panting onto the bedclothes. She would lose her sense of shame. She knew that this did not follow conventional reason. Nevertheless, should a tribunal of unionist ministers call on her to court for adultery, she would tell the truth. Somehow, Turtle Heart had saved her and restored her sense of grace, of hope in this world. Her belief in the goodness of things had been dashed into bits, with little green Elphaba had crawled into being. The child was extravagant punishment for a sin so minor she didn't even know if she had committed it. It was not the sex that saved her, though the sex was mighty vigorous, even frightening. It was that Turtle Heart didn't blush when Frex showed up. He didn't shrink away from beastly little Elphaba. He set up shop in the side yard, blowing glass and grinding it as if life had just brought him there to redeem Melena. Whatever else he might have been heading there had been forgotten. "Very well, you old interfering cow," said Melena. "For the sake of argument, what do you propose?" "We must take Elfie to Rush Margins and find some small children for her to play with." Melina sent back on her haunches. But you have to be jesting. She's slow and deliberate as Elphaba is. She's at least unharmed here. I may not be able to summon much maternal warmth, but if I feed her, Nanny, and I keep her from hurting herself. How cruel to inflict the outside world on her. A green child would be open invitation for scorn and abuse. And children are wickeder than adults, and they have no sense of restraint. We might as well go throw her into the lake she's so terrified of. No, 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 said Nanny, putting her fat hands on her own knees. Her voice was thick with determination. Now I'm gonna argue with you about this, Melina, until you give in. Time and its wisdom will bring you around to my way of thinking. Listen to me. Listen to me. You are only a pampered little rich girl who flitted about from music lessons to dance lessons while the neighborhood children, equally rich and stupid as you. Of course there's cruelty, but Elphaba must learn who she is and she must face down cruelty early. There will be less of it than you expect. Don't play nanny goddess with me. I just won't have it. Nanny is not giving up, Nanny said just as fiercely. I have a long-range view of your happiness as well as hers, and believe me, if you don't give her the weapons and armor which she can defend herself against scorn, she'll make your life miserable, as well as hers will be miserable. And the weapons and armor she'll learn from the dirty urchins of Rush Margins: laughter, fun, teasing, smiling. Oh, please. I'm not blackmailing you about this, Melina, said Nanny. I can wander into Rush Margins this afternoon and find where Frex is trying to hold his revival meeting and whisper a few words to him. While Frex is busy cranking up the religious ardor of Rush Margins sluggards, would he be interested in knowing what his wife is up to with Turtleheart? You are a miserable old fiend. You are a foul, unethical bully, cried Melina. Nanny grinned with pride. No later than tomorrow, she said, and we'll go in tomorrow to get her life started. In the morning, a stiff, unforgiving wind galloped from the heights. It picked up old leaves and the remains of failed crops and the kitchen gardens. Nanny pulled a shawl across her rounded shoulders and tugged a bonnet over her brow. Her eyes were full of marginal beasts. She kept turning to see a slinking cat thing or a vixen dissolve into clots of skeleton leaves and debris. Nanny found a blackthorn staff as if to aid her over the stones and ruts, but she had hoped ready to wield it against some hungry beast. The land is dry and cold, she observed, almost to herself, and so little rain. Of course, the big beasts would be driven from the hills. Let's walk together. No running ahead, little green. They made their way in the silence, Nanny fearful, Melina angry at her for having to miss her afternoon dalliance, and Elphaba like a wind-up toy, one foot solidly in front of the other. The margins of the lake had receded, and some of the crude docks were now walkways over the pebble and drying green rot, while the water pulled back beyond their reach. Gaunette's was a dark stone cottage with a roof of moldering thatch. Because of a bad hip, Gaunette was no good at hauling the fish nets or at kneeling over the wasting vegetable gardens. She had a mess of small children in varying stages of undress, squalling and sulking and trotting around the dirty yard in a little pack. She looked up as the minister's family approached. Good day, and you must be Gaunette, said Nanny brightly. She was pleased to open the gate and be safely inside the garden, even of this hovel. Brother Fexbar told us we would find you here. Sweet Lurline, what they say is true, said Garnett, making a holy sign against Elphaba. I thought it was vicious lies, and here she is. The children had slowed to a walk. There were boys and girls, brown-faced and white, all of them filthy, all of them keen on something new. Though they kept walking, playing some game of endurance or make-believe, their eyes never left Elphaba. You know, this is Melina, of course you do, and I'm their nanny, said Nanny. We are pleased to meet you, Gaunette. She slid a glance at Melina and bit her upper lip and nodded. Very pleased, I'm sure, said Melina, stonily. We need some advice for you, come well recommended, said Nanny. The little girl has problems, and to the best of her thinking, just doesn't seem to bring forth any good ideas. Gaunette leaned forward, suspicious. The child is green, whispered Nanny confidentially. You may not have noticed her being attracted by charms or wealth or warmth, but we know the good people of Rush Margins wouldn't let a thing like that bother them. But because she is green, she is shy. Look at her. Little frightened spring turtle. We need to draw her out, make her happy, and we don't know how. She's green, all right, said Garnett. No wonder useless brother Frexbar retired from his preaching for so long. She threw back her head and laughed raucously, unkindly. And now he's only the nerve to take it up again. Well, that's balls if I ever heard it. Brother Fexbar, interrupted Melina coldly, reminded us of the scriptures. No one knows the color of a soul. Garnett, he suggested that I remind you of the very text. Did he now? Mumbled Garnett, chastised. Well then, what do you want with me? Let her play and let her learn. Let her come here and be minded by you. You know more than we do. The cunning old cow, thought Melina. She is trying the rarest of strategies, telling the truth and trying to make it sound plausible. They sat down. I don't know if they'd take to her, said Garnett, holding out a while. And you know my hip doesn't let me hop up and stop them when they get going. Let's see. Of course there'd be some payment, cash. Melina fully agrees, said Nanny. The barren vegetable plot had caught her attention. This was poverty. Nanny gave Elphaba a push. Well, go on, child. See what's what. The girl didn't budge. She didn't blink. The children came near to her. There were 5 boys and 2 girls. What an ugly pug, said one of the older boys. He touched Elphaba on the shoulder. Play nicely now, said Melina, about to leap up, but Nanny kept her hand out to say, stay down. Tag, let's tag, said the boy. Who's the green fly? Not it, not it, the other children shrieked, rushed to brush Elphaba with their hands, and then raced away. She stood for a minute, unsure, with her own hands down, clenched, and then she ran a few steps and stopped. That's the right way. Healthful exercise, said Nanny, nodding. Garnett, you're a genius. I know my chicks, said Garnett. Don't say I don't. Herd-like, the children rushed in again, tapping and darting away, but the girl would not chase them. So they neared her once more. Is it true you've got a quadling muck frog staying with you too? Said Garnett. Oh, I thought that was one of the kids saying that, my bro. Is it true you have a quadling muck frog staying with you too? Said Garnett. Is it true he only eats grass and dung? I beg your pardon, cries Melina. That's what they say. Is it true? Said Garnett. He's a fine man. But he's a quadling. Well, yes. Don't bring him around here then. They spread the plague, said Garnett. They spread no such thing, snapped Melina. No throwing Elfie, dear, called Nanny. I'm only saying what I hear. They say at night the quadlings fall asleep, and their souls climb through their mouths and go abroad. Stupid people say a lot of stupid things, said Melina. She was curt and too loud. I have never seen his soul climb out of his mouth while he was sleeping, and I've had plenty of opportunity. Darling, no rocks, shrilled Nanny. None of the other children have rocks. Now they do, observed Garnett. He is the most sensitive person I have ever met, said Melina. Sensitive isn't much use to a fishwife, said Garnett. How about to a minister and a minister's wife? Now there's blood. How vexing, said Nanny. Children, let Elfie up so I can wipe that cut. And I didn't bring a rag. Garnett, bleeding is good for them. Makes them less hungry, said Garnett. I rate sensitive a good sight higher than stupid, Melina said, seething. No biting, said Garnett to one of the little boys, and then, seeing Elphaba open her mouth to retaliate, raised herself to her feet, bad hip or no, and screamed, No biting, for the love of mercy. Aren't children divine, said Nanny. We love it. We love wicked, wicked children. Alright, I'm going to throw my bookmark in here and end that. Thank you guys so much for tuning into our ASMR. Oh my goodness. I hope you guys are liking Wicked so far, that I need to get an actual bookmark for it, not a piece of trash. Yeah, crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. Super cute, super fun. We love it. So yeah, Turtle Heart's definitely been you know, digging down old mom there, and then, like, you know, hoping that he'll be getting Frex afterwards, you know. She's had a crazy life already though, like, you know, that's a lot. Strange man to just show up in your life one day and be like, oh, second daddy earned. Like, okay, good for you. Good for you. Some people don't have any daddies. This girl got 2, even though one's super absent. So at least Turtle Heart's cute and sweet and attentive and sensitive, says Melina. How sweet. But yeah, this has been our whoosh ASMR reading of Wicked, the life and times of the Wicked Witch of the West. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. I was originally only going to do an hour. So yeah, this lasted a little longer than I thought. But I had fun. I should have had my Twitch stuff up on the other side so I could read if I don't know if I got any followers at all. Thank you if anybody followed me. Sorry it doesn't show me. I should set up stream elements. Ooh, that'll probably be something I do in the near future. I don't know. We're trying. We're doing our best. Oh my god, did you follow? Thank you, first time chatter. Baranda Zero, thank you. I hope you enjoyed our little reading of Wicked. We made it pretty decently through the book, actually. We're on page 53. So thank you so much for joining us and following. And I don't do ASMR streams often. In fact, this is my first one on Twitch. So I hope we have fun reading this book. And then, yeah, maybe we'll do suggestions for other books in the future or other specific readings. So I just love Wicked. I just love musical. I love Wizard of Oz. I'm Glinda the Good Witch. So, you know, this has been fantastic. It's been a beautiful time with you beautiful people. For now, I'm gonna take a little break from the streams, go catch up, you know, see what's going on in the real world. And then, oh my god, I'm so happy you guys were here. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so very much. Yeah, we're gonna take a little breaky and then, who knows? Like I said, Fortnite's got that Kaiju number 8 shit come out, so I really want to go peep at that, and so we'll take a look at that. Maybe we'll play League. Melvadara's out, still haven't touched that. But yeah, we'll see what everybody else is up to, and until next time, thank you guys for hanging out. Beautiful people, don't forget to drink your water, otherwise I'll come for you. Anyways, thanks so much. Stay pretty, and yeah, don't forget to, you know, defy gravity, be unlimited, you know, all that good stuff. Stay cute, stay beautiful, and I'll see you guys later, probably playing games though. So have fun, thank you, and good night. We love it so much.